Well, good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. And if it's Friday, that means that our Chief Grand Poobah, Stan the Fan Charles, is back in studio with us. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
You were not arrested on the way in this morning and detained and then had to race back in order to be here in time?
No, my arrests all took place before I was 35 years old.
This is not a laughing matter, okay?
Look, you know,
some people have a lot of
no. Oh, because your betting needs. That's what Griffin's worried about. No, the awkward part is that you want to make a lot of jokes about it, but there was an accident that involved someone dying, so you don't. It's a very fine line for, like, Scotty Scheffler has nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah,
nothing.
In fairness to Scotty Scheffler, he didn't know what he was driving.
100%.
But in case people haven't heard, tell them.
It's just the most unbelievable story. You know what's really funny is that when I woke up this morning, the first tweet that I saw was from like Adam Schefter saying Scotty Scheffler is on his way to Valhalla, and I was like, well, yeah, you would think, right? Like, where else would he be today? Was he going to the racetrack instead? And then obviously I scrolled through a couple more tweets and said, oh, all right, I see what's happening here. Yeah. So just a crazy, crazy story this morning is Scotty Scheffler, the world number one. It was in the mix after round one. Xander Schauffele had posted a 9-under and was kind of racing away from the field. But Scotty Scheffler, there was an awful accident going into the Valhalla course where they're playing the PGA Championship in Louisville, and a pedestrian was struck and killed, and so it created a traffic situation. And apparently, the golfers were all told, if you're in a PGA marked car, just drive on the median and you can get around and you'll be fine. And some golfers were doing that, and Scotty Scheffler attempted to do that, and it turned into a hullabaloo that involved an aggressive police officer cursing at him and then attaching himself to the car. That, by the way, is the part of the story that I'm still struggling with. Like, did he have Velcro? Like, what do you mean? You just jumped on the windshield? Like,
That's probably what happened.
More or less what occurred. And so then Scotty Scheffler was arrested and detained and literally taken to jail, put in, like,
handcuffs.
Not just in handcuffs.
Like the jumpsuit.
They put him in the jumpsuit and mugshot, the whole deal. Now he's playing. His second round is underway.
I was watching or listening to Morning Joe, and they were talking about this story, and they had a report from somebody that actually was there, a reporter that was actually there, and he said when they were carrying him away, he looked at the reporter and he says, "Please help me."
So Jeff Darlington, the NFL reporter for ESPN, is working as part of their PGA Championship coverage, and he was the one that was like, and you can see in the video, he's trying to say to the police officers, like, "Hey, you guys,
It's the number one golfer in the world."
And the police officers are like, "Get back, get back!" And they're like, "Well, all right," like, because Jeff Darlington doesn't want to be arrested,
right?
So he's sort of like, I don't know what to do here exactly. It is an insane story, but he's playing golf today. And I assume that at some point the charges will be dropped. I assume that at some point
I see some signed golf balls.
Maybe I feel like I don't know, man. Whatever. It's not even
it's
not something
crazy.
It's crazy is the correct word.
Crazy.
It's crazy. So happy Friday morning. No problem for Stan. He was able to get in, no issue. We didn't have to get him a Range Rover to send to pick him up from the prison or anything like that.
Well, apparently, like, Will Zalatoris and Cam Young were seen walking up the highway because
they just abandoned their cars.
Yeah, because of the traffic delays.
Like a snowy night in Baltimore.
Were they carrying their bags?
I guess
their bags are in there.
Yeah,
he's
just got his
already.
backpack. Like, they're just walking up the street.
Probably not the best look for the folks in Louisville. Probably have to do some scrambling today. But, it is what it is. All right, we got a lot to do on a Friday edition of the program. It is a big event weekend here in Baltimore, obviously. The Preakness tomorrow. Bummer that the favorite Muth is not running in the race. We'll find out a little bit more about that.
I had him on my fantasy team.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You did it to him again.
Yeah.
You did it to him again. We will talk to his trainer, who still has another of the favorites in the race, Imagination. Of course, Bob Baffert will join us a little bit later on. You might say, Glenn, weren't you just saying the other day that you were confused about whether or not you wanted to have Bob Baffert on because of the suspension? I did talk to some people far more educated than myself, and they told me that the Bob Baffert thing is not evil. I needed to have it explained to me, like the medication that he gave the horse, Medina Spirit, was a prescribed medication. It was not doping. He just made a mistake, so I am willing to say I understand, and so I appreciate the people that inform me about that. So, yes, we'll talk to Bob Baffert about the horse he still has running, but also about Muth and the decision that was made to not run the morning line favorite. So it defaults to Mystik Dan, the Derby winner, as being the favorite in what is just an 8-horse field tomorrow. Speaking of which, Larry Collmus, Mount St. Joe's own race caller for NBC, will also join us this morning. And later on in the program, we're going to chat for the first time with Marc Broady, who is the executive director of the new Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. My suggestion is maybe they might want to work on the name. Now, I don't think I'm going to say that to Mark. I think that that's a problem for another day. But this is the new commission that has been established as part of the agreement, and I've already forgotten the House bill that what the number was that was signed.
HB 1154,
something like that. Yeah, that sounds right, Stan. This is the new commission.
You gave that to me the other day.
Yes, yeah. We had a conversation the other day, and I had pulled that up for some research that we were doing. But as part of that, this is the new commission that will oversee horse racing in the state of Maryland and the future of Pimlico. And so we will chat with him as the process has begun. The bill has been signed this week by the governor, and it is happening, and the timeline starts now. So we'll chat with him for a few minutes as well. Plus, we will preview Orioles Mariners. Rick Rizzs from Mariners play-by-play voice will join us a little bit later on in the program as well, ahead of this weekend series, which I hope they're going to be able to play. Griffin, you want to do the bit? Right now,
yeah,
right now they're fine.
Right now.
Obviously, I believe I saw there's more rain in the forecast.
Yeah, they should be fine tonight, I think.
I think tomorrow is a problem. I think tomorrow is a problem for the Preakness. I think tomorrow is a problem for baseball. I think tomorrow is a problem all around. I do think it's better.
How do you feel about the Orioles? Usually when the Preakness is here and the Orioles are here, the Orioles are playing a
at
night game.
Right.
First of all, I think the Orioles should always ask for the schedule to be made that they're not playing at home on Preakness weekend.
So I always felt that way, Stan.
Yeah.
And somebody told me that I think there was as part of Preakness festivities, they liked having Friday night Bob Baffert could throw out the first ball.
Exactly. I get it, but
right.
I really my real axe to grind is why would you have a game at 4:05?
That part now, of course, they moved all. This is not unique to this weekend.
Yeah.
They moved all of their Saturday games to 4:05.
But the Orioles know
for the one weekend to say, hey, this is the one that we shouldn't be. We all got to be community partners here, and we all got to understand what's best for the city and what's best for the community. 1,000%, I agree with you. 1,000% that for this one night,
it's kind of like the NFL draft. I'm not comparing that to the Triple Crown, but it is a huge event in your town. The Detroit Tigers, the Friday, played an afternoon game.
Oh,
they
did not go away.
They did not go head-to-head with the NFL draft.
Let's do everything in our power for all parties involved to show that we can work together in order to have big events. That, to me...
Now, could they possibly be saying, but if the game started at 7:05, you'd have a traffic cluster F? That's possible that was in their thinking.
Then maybe they should play the game at noon.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the answer, is that what your thought process to me is a bigger statement that our city has dealt with time and time again, which is how do we show that we can be a big event city? How do we show that together we can all work and we're not going to fight each other and we're all going to do everything in our power? And in the height of the fight about the Ravens winning the Super Bowl and that Thursday night game to start the season, the thing that everybody wanted to blame somebody just came back to you all sound like 6-year-olds. Like, oh, I didn't. It's your fault. Stop. How do we work this out? How do we all get together and solve this for the best of the city? This blame thing is for my kids. This is what my kids do. I don't care who's
Your kids are awful.
Yeah, right. What the hell's wrong with them? In fairness, I
and
still
your wife.
Yeah, right. Well, wait. Actually, she has a problem with this
Is she
too.
the one that flew the flag upside down?
No, she's not the one that flew the flag upside down.
Supreme Court justice.
Yes,
flies
correct.
the flag upside down. Blames his wife.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
my wife that did it.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
I'm too busy.
Right. Right. Taking bribes. Allegedly. Yeah, let's make sure I don't get myself in trouble. No, I still do this sometimes with Griffin. With Griffin, something will go wrong, and he'll be like, "Well, dude," I'm like, "Dude, just stop. We don't need to blame. I don't need that. Just solve the problem. That's all. Let's just get it solved." And that was the issue that I had. For a city, I would like for us to do everything in our power to show that we can be a big event city and we can handle these types of things.
Now,
and
it's possible that this had nothing to do with that they just said, hey, all our games are 405,
Yeah, I wish that there would be powers that be within the state that work with everybody as partners and say, hey, can we talk about this? Can we try to come up with a solution that is good for everyone involved? Is that a possibility here? And you're right. I would back up that and say it's disappointing to me that they weren't able to figure that out and that the two events will be going on at the exact same time tomorrow. I do think that's a mistake. But
maybe they think that, hey, the game will be over.
The baseball games are so quick now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. They are moving quite rapidly. Stan, I wrote a column. I know I enjoyed your column this week. Stan wrote about the column that he didn't write,
right,
like from a couple weeks ago that we had talked about on the show, where he was going to write about how Bobby Witt Jr. has proven to be the correct pick, and of course Adley Rutschman is having a great start to the season and reminding everyone of what
he's having since I was going to
right.
I was either going to write it before we went into Kansas City, and I said, you know what, I'll watch again, and I think it'll be more timely to write it afterwards. And since that series, he's been absolutely unbelievable, hitting 8 of his 9 home runs, batting .333.
Yep.
All his slash line is off the charts, and Bobby Witt's got a huge contract, and he's going to be just fine, and he's a great player too. But the Adley Rutschman we've seen over the last 3 weeks has been pretty astounding. And I point out one stat that I think was really fascinating. This is a guy, Glenn, last year who walked 101 times, struck out 101, walked 92 times. When we went into Kansas City, he had struck out 11 times, walked 6 times. Since then, he's struck out 20 times and walked 3 times. I think somebody kind of woke him up, or he woke himself up and said, I got to sell out a little bit more to be more productive than be quite as patient as I am and worry about on-base
So
percentage.
How do we measure that against, Stan, like the fact that all of the runs they scored in 2 games against the Blue Jays, they scored 5 total runs. They only scored via the home run.
Right.
They continue, again, they hit plenty of home runs, but the numbers that I pulled from my column this week, they're now they've dipped down as far as to .304 for their on-base percentage as a team for the season. And there has been one team since the turn of the millennium that's won a World Series with a sub .319 on-base percentage, right? Like there was the Giants in 2014 at a .311 on-base percentage.
I was writing this when we lost to the Kansas City Royals, that was the villain in what happened to the Orioles that year, and they were like .311 for that, or .312, I think, for that season. You need to be .325, .330, and the Orioles were last year.
Yep, correct. So this is, and we talked about that the other night on the radio. It seemed like late last season is when things started to turn, and it appeared to be more of a, hey, we're comfortable as hitters. We want to swing for the fences a little bit more. I'm not. The point of getting on base is to score runs, right? Like that's what everybody says. And they do. They are still scoring, even with a little bit of a dip these last 3 games. They're still scoring close to 5 runs per game this season. And I'm not panicked about it by any stretch of the imagination. But I almost wonder if there was a philosophy change within the organization to say, we want you guys to swing more to your point, we want you guys to adjust to try to be more productive, get more on base.
Do the numbers, because I did not read your column, and I apologize.
Yeah.
I usually do. But are there numbers supporting that the way I support the contention, what Rutschman is doing? I mean, Mountcastle still is striking
Well,
out.
the walk-to-strikeout rate is abysmal. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is
That's always a key combination to look at.
It's almost unfathomable.
I mean, is it like 6-1?
Well, so they do it the opposite way. They do like how many walks per strikeout. So
Right.
it's 0.3 walks per strikeout, right? So that is now. Oh, yeah, Seattle actually moved below them, ironically. So they were third to last in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle is now a tick below them. Miami and Colorado are the only other
Right.
teams that are below them in
Right.
all of baseball with that strikeout to walk ratio.
I'm an old timer. Does it have how many strikeouts the Orioles have collectively and how many walks?
I can try to pull that up in a second, Stan.
I'm old time.
Yeah, I can try to pull up those numbers. Hang on a second.
I'm gonna guess it's like 4.5. I don't think it's quite 6 or 7, but
as a team, the Orioles are strikeout. Now remember, they played fewer games, so we got to do this math.
Right.
346 strikeouts.
Right.
And 107 walks. So it's less than 3-1. It's more than 3-1. Yeah.
On a given player, that's not horrible, but team-wide, it's not good. It's not good.
It's abysmal. I mean, like, it's Ryan O'Hearn obviously has been really good in that department.
Right.
Anthony Santander, ironically, considering he's not been very productive, has actually been decent in that department. And
I'd just be curious, what is like Mullins on base percentage?
Well, Mullins, I mean, it's like 240. It's ungodly.
Yeah.
It's the Mullins thing. Cowser post after his torrid stretch, everything since then has been
terrible,
really brutal, and nobody else is really getting on specifically on base at a clip to make up for any of it. And again, I'm not panicked. I'm not. My God, there's no way they can see through this.
It's a 7 weeks snapshot,
right?
But it's an alarming trend.
Correct.
That's what it is.
If this continues, I don't think they can home run their way out of this being a problem.
Can you give me what's the Yankees, for instance? What is their strikeout to?
I'll pull it up right now. The Yankees, 339 strikeouts, 179 walks.
Yeah, so there's about 60 more walks in there.
Correct.
And only 30 more strikeouts or something like that.
Fewer strikeouts.
Yeah.
7 fewer strikeouts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, this is in more games, too.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I keep coming back to it. It's a problem. It's got to change. I think it can change.
Yeah.
I would like to think that that somebody would sit down and say, we know that this isn't good, that this is untenable. We know that you can't just home run your way to winning a World Series and not getting on base, and that they're going to work on it in the coming weeks. But I think we have to say it out loud and not just simply say, like, well, they're good, right? Like, yeah, they're winning enough games, and they managed to avoid the sweep thing the other day. And heck, in that game, ironically, they got guys on base. Right?
That was
the irony of Wednesday was getting guys on base was not the problem.
Yeah.
Like, they couldn't have had more guys on base. And
well, hopefully with Austin Hayes back, and I know I was down on Hayes, before he went on the IL, but what we seem to be is a little top heavy with left-handed hitters, and the club needs some right-handed punch in there against left-handed pitching, and maybe Hayes can provide that. Well, I hope they don't just sit Stowers. I want to see Stowers play a little
and
bit.
Figure out if he is a Major League Baseball player or not.
Let's see if we.
I think the problem with Hayes is that I have said all along, you've reached a breaking point where you can't just keep putting Mullins and Cowser in the lineup. You can't. They can't both be this unproductive and both have spots in the lineup. So you gotta have to make a decision Which is more valuable? Mullins, do you just bite the bullet because Mullins is so valuable defensively that you say he's going to be a black hole in the lineup, but we can't do anything about that.
Right.
We have to have someone in center field that we trust defensively, so we're going to live with it. Or do you say Colton Cowser's young and part of our future plans, so we've got to let him work through this, and we're going to – but to me, I don't think it can be both. To me, Austin Hayes has to play every day in one of those two spots. And
I think you're going to see a lot of Austin Hayes.
The problem
being,
think
he'll play some center field.
I don't know what to make of what they did on Wednesday, where they put him into pinch hit and then immediately had to pinch run for him. And Brandon Hyde says afterwards that
he's still a little gimpy.
That comes to you like, should he be on the roster? Like, why did you activate him if he wasn't ready to play?
I had the bigger problem I had in that ball game was I was down in spring training for 2 weeks. I like to talk about that because it was a happy time. Kyle Stowers, I saw him hit 4 home runs against left-handed pitchers while I was down there. I think he had 7 or 8 for spring training. Who do you really want up at the plate in that situation the other day? Urias? Or Stowers against the left-hander.
Yeah,
I mean, I've really appreciated Ramon Urias for 2.5, 3 years, and when you're a team that's going from 52 to 75 wins, Ramon Urias was terrific. Great story. When you're trying to really hone a championship team, I don't see any place for him.
Yeah,
in this
you
team.
and I have talked. It's painful for me. I don't like trashing Ramon Urias. I don't like that. I respect the way that he's played the game, all of those things. But the way that I said it,
I'm sitting there and I go, he's going to strike out here.
I think the Orioles have outgrown Ramon Urias. Yeah. That's the way that I have said it over and over. I just think it's.
And I think they outgrew Ryan McKenna.
Yes, yes, I think that was clear too. That it's just they're.
That was a long time ago, though. That was.
Well, I mean, in fairness.
Well, give them credit. They finally outgrew Ryan Flanagan. What's
Flaherty?
Ryan
Flaherty. Actually, they might be able to still use him.
Yeah, they really could. They could not quit him, could they? They really could not.
Loved
quit
him.
Ryan
Look,
Flaherty.
managers, you understand why a manager falls in love with a guy
because they're scrappy. Because they do the things that you want to.
They play most of the things right.
Right.
But what it got exposed with McKenna was he stopped doing things right. He slid by the base.
Yep.
That throw the other night from right field on the
just misplayed balls in the outfield when you're supposed to be a defensive player. It doesn't work. All right. Things are still better here than they are for the Boston Red Sox. Ha ha. Our next guest. For some reason, despite being a Baltimore guy, Mount St. Joe's own, I've never understood this. I'll never get why he's a Red Sox fan, but we like him anyway. You, of course, see him tomorrow on NBC calling the Preakness. He is our friend, Mr. Larry Collmus, and he is with us this morning on GCR. Larry, it's Glenn and Stan the Fan Charles. It's always great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Good morning, guys. Great to be with you. And, you got the last laugh going these days in baseball because, I grew up an Orioles fan, and then I spent many years working in Boston at Suffolk Downs. And before they started to get good, I just started to, think about becoming a Red Sox fan because I was disenchanted with the Orioles. And
I understand that.
I'm not allowed to go back.
We will welcome you back, Larry. I need you to know that we will welcome
you back on the wagon.
You want to come to the ball game tonight? We will get you some gear. We are happy to have you back at this point.
I'm still rooting for the Orioles. Believe me. One thing we can all agree on: we hate the Yankees.
Well, there is that. We can agree on that. Larry, it's always great to catch up with you. I know there's it's obviously a bummer when a horse the caliber of Muth ends up having to be scratched, although you appreciate the people in the industry doing the right thing and prioritizing the health of a horse and making a good decision. How is it that the field becomes more interesting? Like, is it a more competitive race without the favorite now in it? And what do you expect tomorrow?
I think it's going to be really competitive, and I thought it would be competitive even with Muth in the race. I mean, he stand out on numbers? Not really. I mean, he was definitely going to be the favorite in there, but I think it's going to be great, and the main factor obviously is weather. I mean, it looks like it's going to be an off track for sure, the way things look, and Mystik Dan's best race he ever ran, even better than the Kentucky Derby numbers-wise, was in the slop at Oaklawn Park in the Southwest, and you've got actually there's a few horses in there that seem like they either are bred for an off track or have already shown that they would like an off track. So I think it'll be an interesting race, and I wouldn't discount Baffert with his other horse, Imagination. I think that horse got a big shot.
Larry, I know what goes into the prep to doing races. You got to get the colors lined up and the names of the horses. Do you actually handicap races beforehand to kind of get a sense of how the race will play out? Because I just was wondering if you had seen Mystik Dan, his past performance, whether you saw he had any chance to win the Derby or not.
Well, I do try to handicap the race more for where I would expect them to be.
Yeah.
As far as who the front runners are, who the closers are. Less, when I'm calling, I'm not really trying to pick a winner.
Right.
So I'm not. Mystik Dan to me was one of the horses that, figured to maybe have a shot, but I wouldn't have picked him to win the race. But he certainly got a perfect ride, and everything went his way. And now he only has to negotiate his way through, an 8-horse field. And the way the race sets up, there's not a whole lot of speed. I think he'll be very close to the front.
He is Larry Collmus, NBC race caller. You'll, of course, hear him tomorrow on the Call of the Preakness. He's with us on GCR. Larry, that said, you mentioned the perfect ride, and it's so well described. Like, Brian Hernandez navigated that flawlessly in the Kentucky Derby. To your point, it seems like it would be easy, but I guess the question, like, did it require that, and does it require that type of flawless ride for Mystik Dan in order to be able to do this?
Well, it did in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, if he doesn't get through, it's over. He's not going to win. In the Preakness, who knows? I mean, there's only 8. So that's the big difference. I mean, you don't have to have that much luck. There should be more room for everybody with an 8-horse field. But I think that the race might set up best for Imagination. To me, he's the speed of the race. And I think Frankie Dettori obviously is one of the best jockeys in the world, if not the best. And I think with Muth out, Imagination could get overlooked a little bit, and he could be very interesting.
Who are the other horses? You bring up Imagination, obviously. I guess, one, tell me a little bit more about why you feel like Imagination is a factor, and then who are the other horses in this field that you kind of separated and said, I think that these are the horses that are most likely to be the threats?
Well, as far as Imagination goes, Bob is just, you always have to watch out for him at the Preakness. Yeah. He's won it 8 times, and
that's
I
good.
think
That's
that the
pretty
horse
good,
simply, yeah, I'd say it's more than anybody else. Wayne Lucas has won it 6, and God knows we'd love to see him win. That would be so much fun to watch Wayne Lucas win the race at age 88. He's got 2 horses in there. So I think Imagination's got an edge in that he, has that early speed and probably the most early speed of anybody in the race. Outside post might be a little bit of a detriment, but we'll see when it comes to that. The horse, I think, other than those, Catching Freedom.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
And here's the deal. I mean, Brad Cox never runs horses back on 2 weeks rest. He never does. I'm not even talking about Triple Crown horses. I'm talking about all of his horses. And when he's doing that with Catching Freedom, you have to think this horse must be doing really, really well, because I don't think the owners are putting any pressure on him, and he didn't hesitate. He's like, yeah, we're coming back in the Preakness, and that is not Brad Cox's style whatsoever. So I'm guessing that Catching Freedom must be, tearing the barn down, and so I would watch out for him for sure.
Can I ask you a Triple Crown question that's sort of like the overall gestalt of the Triple Crown now? You just touched on the fact that they don't usually like to run this Brad Cox doesn't like to run somebody back in 2 weeks. Has the game changed so much that the Triple Crown should be reshaped to perhaps have the thing over 3 months, where you have first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, first Saturday in July, where you'd really get a more accurate way that that people like to run their racehorses now?
If you had asked me that question, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I would say no, I'm a traditionalist. The Triple Crown shouldn't change.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to the other way now. Yeah, I think it needs to change.
Yeah.
The game. I mean, how many other sports have stayed exactly the same? I mean, the 3-point line in basketball. All these new rules in baseball, whether you like them or not. I don't myself. But I think that because of the way horses are trained and the fact that they're used to taking more time between races, 4 to 5 weeks, and now you're asking them to do this during the Triple Crown, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And I would hope that the 3 tracks could one day get together and say, hey, let's map out a new schedule. Yeah. Let's do it this way, and it would be better for the game. Not only would you have a better Preakness field, but you'd have a better undercard with all the other races, because all those horses that ran on Derby Day at Churchill Downs could come back and come to Pimlico.
Yeah.
Whereas they're not going to do that off of 2 weeks rest.
Right.
So I think it would be a benefit to all if they change the Triple Crown and extend the period between races.
We know that the Preakness folks have been talking about it a lot. Have you gotten the sense, Larry, that because there was always the opinion within the industry, well then, hey, if somebody wins, they should have an asterisk next to them. It's not the same. Do you get the sense that is changing more widely throughout the industry, and that even some of the hardliners like yourself, even some of the hardliners are sort of saying no, for the health of the sport now, this has to change. We're running the risk of there being Preaknesses moving forward with at most one Derby horse for the foreseeable future. Right.
I think that most people are starting to change their tune, and again, me being one of them. And I know Randy Moss, not the football player, but the one we work with for NBC, has been on top of this for quite a long time and saying it has to change. I'm like, I don't know. And now I'm like, yeah, you're right. It does.
Larry,
I think that
I agree with you.
That time.
Yeah, I agree with you. 10, 11 years ago, I would have said, you need the tradition and all that. Nobody really, you almost have to keep your fingers crossed that we're going to get the Derby horse to come back to the Preakness.
Yep.
Oh, we almost didn't. Yeah. I mean, it came very close to us not getting that this year.
And that's terrible for the
McPeak
sport.
Changed his mind, No, it is terrible. I agree.
Larry, before we let you go, I hate the fact that we've been talking about it. Basically, since you've taken this job, we've had to come around to the future of Pimlico. Every conversation we've had since
every
year has gotten to this point. The law was finally signed by the governor this week here in the state of Maryland. What does it mean for the sport, for the industry? We see what's going on. The Belmont's going to be at Saratoga this year as they're kind of completely redoing the track. What does it mean for the industry, for the sport, that we can finally move on from this topic in the coming years and know that within the next decade there is going to be a new Pimlico and Baltimore will continue to be the home of the Preakness?
I think it's great. I mean, I've always that's the one thing that I've stuck with forever. When they started talking about moving the Preakness to Laurel, I'm like, no, it's Baltimore's race. Don't move the Preakness to Laurel unless you have to. And of course, we're going to have to for a couple of years, but that's okay because long term it's going to stay at Pimlico. And I drove into the track yesterday, and you drive in, and the place hasn't changed forever, and you're like, okay, it's not a pretty sight, but I love it.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just cool to be back, and to know that for years and years to come that's going to be the place where we'll have the Preakness, I think is awesome. And I can't wait for the new Pimlico to show up in a few years and see how it's going to look. And I think it's very exciting for sure.
Black-Eyed Susan Day this afternoon on Peacock, and then, of course, tomorrow, NBC for the whole card leading up until the Preakness. At Larry Collmus on Twitter, of course, is how you follow him. Larry, always appreciate you, sir. Always great to have you back here at home. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Glenn, Stan, always a pleasure, and happy Preakness.
Larry, many, 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 many years ahead doing this,
No
okay?
doubt.
You're really a champ at it.
Thank you very much.
That's Larry Collmus, race caller extraordinaire
Even
for
if
NBC.
he is a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, that part has always bothered me for a Baltimore kid to have become a Red Sox fan. But what you said, you're, of course, 1,000% correct. He's
great.
As with people that are good at their jobs, like that what they do, they're just very good at.
Yeah.
There are few. Tom Rinaldi is someone that I always use an example of this. Tom Rinaldi's job to do like the emotional, package on College Game Day for years to try to bring it. He was ungodly good at his job.
Have you ever heard my race call when I
Stan,
did
we did it on the same day.
I know. Did you ever hear me?
I heard yours.
Yeah.
It was.
I vowed that I would not start going into the horse's numbers.
Stan, you did better than I did. At one point, remember
Stein
that day,
did a pretty good job.
Stein wasn't bad. You know who put us all to shame? Quint
Quint
killed
was
it.
great.
Quint
Yeah.
killed it.
I forgot the horses' names and I think I got like a 5.5 furlong race.
Yeah.
And it was like and the one's got it and the two's got it.
Stan.
Then I came up with a good line for the horse was like something tapping, and I said, and such is tapping his way to a 4-length victory.
See,
yeah, it was good.
Much better.
Yeah.
Stan, at one point, do you remember that they had it was like the Moonrise Festival was that weekend.
Right.
They're the electronic dance music thing.
Right.
And so they set up all the stuff in the infield. And like Dave Rodman tried to explain, okay, watch from binoculars, but then at some point you're going to have to go to the monitor.
Right.
Right? Well, somehow in the turn from watching through the binoculars to going to the monitor, my brain shut down. Like I had all the horses, and we were doing fine right up until that point. And then the moment that I had to put the binoculars down and go to the monitor,
you were lost.
No idea who any of the horses were.
Well, you
None.
don't see many of
Brain
them on the monitor.
Gave up, yep.
Yeah.
And so it was a nightmare for me at that point. I have hoped that video was burned and that no one will ever see it. And I said, well, whatever I do in my life, it's probably not going to be calling
I
races.
haven't done that since Mike Gaffigan left.
Well, it was Quint's thing. Like, do you know that was the story? Was that
You mean it was his
Quint
idea?
Suggested it.
He was,
and you
by
understand
far
why.
the
He was
best.
really
He
good at it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Quint had suggested, and like Pete Medhurst could do it because Pete Medhurst calls races. They were guys that were capable of doing it, and then the rest of us, Justin Schlegel trying to call a horse race. Now, in fairness, he just decided he was going to be funny the whole time, and it was funny.
But before the race, I vowed that I was going to have the horses' names memorized, and to do it like 9 or 11 times a day to have to do that. That is really a unique talent.
It's
really is.
Unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal how good these guys are. And yes, Larry Collmus is brilliant.
Or how bad we are.
That also was unreal that day. By the way, that was the day I was going. There was a Triple Crown at stake that year because it was the Friday before the Belmont. And I was leaving right afterwards. Like I was going to call the race.
You were already with Press Box, right?
No, I was still at.
You were still at the other.
Yeah. It was like probably the last year that it existed.
You were still in hell.
Yeah, I was definitely still in hell. Ugh. No, it couldn't have been the last year that it existed. It must have been 13, maybe was the whatever it was.
Yeah.
There was a Triple Crown at stake, and I was driving from Pimlico to go to the Belmont, and I had never been before.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I was so shook by my performance that I had to make Mrs. Clark do the driving for the first stretch of the trip because I was
This
so.
is like 2 days later?
No, this was the day. Like literally, we all called the races on a Friday.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And I was.
You were driving up on Friday.
Right
okay.
from Pimlico, we were driving to New York to go to the Belmont.
Gotcha.
And I go to get in the car after calling the race. I'm trying to laugh it off like, well, this isn't going to be for me.
Yeah.
And like as we're pulling out of the parking lot, I'm like shaking because I'm starting to get messages from people. Like people saw this. And I'm like, oh, man, this is embarrassing. And I'm now like you're worried that you're about to go viral, right? Like, listen to the worst race call in the history of race calls. And so I literally said to my wife, why don't you drive for a little bit? Like, we get into Jersey or something. Right. I'll take it from there. But I just need a moment to decompress. It was that
I get it.
bad.
I get it.
All right. Today's show brought to you by, it's not that bad. Atman's Deli. They're that good.
No, you know why?
Because
they have a bar.
That's correct.
A bar.
They have
a
everything you love about the original Atman's Deli, which is, of course, a Baltimore institution, and
a bar.
look, this weekend you might be waiting out the rain wherever you're going, whether you're going to a horse race, a lacrosse game, the baseball games, wherever it is that you're doing, you might be waiting out the rain. It's a much more pleasant experience to wait it out at Atman's Deli. Find out if these games are even going to be played. Just hang out in Harbor Point at the all-new Atman's Deli, right there at the bar. Enjoy all the delicious food that you love at Atman's, the corned beef, the deli sandwiches, the hot dogs, and the bologna. Everything right there. And then you can get over to whatever it is that you're going to. Or if they cancel it, you can just keep hanging out at Atman's Deli. Find out more about the daily specials by going to atmansdeli.com. Imagination trainer and 8-time Preakness champion Bob Baffert joins us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Stan the Fan Charles in studio with us on a Friday.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Grayson Rodriguez, talking to people who have been part of his path as the Orioles hope he'll become their next homegrown ace. Also inside, we remember legendary Maryland basketball coach Lefty Driesell with stories from legends like Roy Williams and Bobby Cremins about what it was like to go up against the old left-hander. Press Box is available at over 500 locations around Baltimore, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can also find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR. It is a Friday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us. Hang on, we need his mic on, though.
That would be me.
Now he's in studio.
A bar.
Thank you. The Orioles have announced that John Means will start the opener of the series tonight against the Mariners. So John Means starts tonight, and they have not decided Saturday, Sunday. I don't know if that's part of that waiting out what they think the weather is going to be, and
possible activation of Mr.
Grayson Rodriguez. Yep.
Is there any news as to why they moved on from Irvin?
No, nobody said any. I mean, I
did not know that.
Well, how? Okay. Maybe, and why would you prioritize normal rest for one instead of the other?
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's, hey, John Means is working his way back. We want to make sure we're keeping him on normal rest. Is it the nature of wanting – well, they're both lefties. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I would normally want to separate my lefties.
Yeah, right.
That's normally what I would do.
I don't know. I don't know, Stan. They just announced a couple minutes ago that it's going to be John Means tonight for the opener against the Mariners, and we will see what they do for the rest of the weekend.
And Bryce Miller's starting for them.
Exactly right. The Mariners have announced their starters for the whole weekend. As you point out, it's Bryce Miller, then Luis Castillo, and George Kirby are the starters this weekend.
Tough threesome.
Certainly. Well, you don't get a whole lot of breaks with the Mariners pitching.
Nope.
All right, Preakness tomorrow. Joining us now, an 8-time Preakness champion. Just one horse, as unfortunately had to scratch what would have been the favorite, Muth, this week, but it's always a pleasure to welcome back to the program Mr. Bob Baffert, who is with us now here on GCR. Bob, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. It's always great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Bob, I know you've been through it this week. It's got to be a very difficult thing to do, but I imagine it's not all that difficult a decision for you to make to try to protect and do what's right by your horse when you have to scratch a horse as good as Moo.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just disappointing because all the owners of the horse, the jockey of the horse, everybody's looking forward. He's going to be the favorite. He's doing really well. And unfortunately, I've been really fortunate in the years. This hasn't happened to me all the years I've been training for a big race. One of my big horses spikes the temperature right before the race. So, but like I said, he's doing fine. We jumped on it right away with antibiotics, and he looks like he's doing well.
What do we need to know about Imagination? Obviously, all the talk this week was going to be about Muth, but Imagination is a hell of a horse. What should we know about Imagination and the faith that you all have that this could be your Preakness winner?
Well, I mean, all his races have been strong. He's been first or second. He's not a horse that's, one off on his own. He likes to sort of hang with horses a little bit. He hasn't learned how to separate himself from the horses. He's going to have to do that this week. I like his post position. He likes running on the outside, and he's got a great jockey, and so he knows him well. So he's going to have to improve at least 3 lengths off his last races to win. And he's been working his last couple of works. He worked with Muth, the favorite, and he was right there. He gave him all he wanted. He stayed with him. So coming into this race, I feel pretty good about it.
Bob, you've won the Derby 6 times, the Preakness 8 times, the Belmont 3 times. I'm not asking who your favorite horse was. If you had to say who the best horse you ever trained was, it would be who?
I get that a lot, and I can't even answer that myself.
It's really tough.
Fortunate to have. Well, I've had American Pharoah's my favorite horse because he was just, not only was he such a brilliant racehorse, but around the barn he was just a sweetheart. I mean, he'd lay his head in your lap. Where Justify was a great horse that he accomplished in 112 days, which is insane. Superior racehorse, but he was tough. That when he was just acted like a typical stallion, and Arrogate was probably one of the best. Could be one of the best horses that I trained. He didn't run in the classics, but he was unbelievable horse. And so those 3 horses were probably. But then I had Midnight Loot was also an incredible horse. But I've really had some really nice horses, but I've been really fortunate.
He is Bob Baffert. He is, of course, with us here on GCR. Bob, you brought up Frankie Dettori, right? And for folks that only pay attention to horse racing between the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont in this country, I'm not sure if they're as familiar with Frankie and know why he's revered as one of the great jockeys in the world. Could you enlighten us about what makes him so special as a rider and the faith that you have in him?
Well, Frankie, when he first started, he's from Italy, and when he first started, he came to the States when he was around 16 or 17. He rode for one winter at Santa Anita, and he remembers watching the Santa Anita Big Cap. It was big then. It was like the biggest race in the winter in California. And then he left, and then he became this great rider in Europe. He's won every major race multiple times in Europe. He's won the Arc de Triomphe and the French race. I think he's won it 6 times. He's won every Ascot race. He's won like 6 or 7 races at Ascot. You know, the record. Probably a top 10 greatest jockeys ever in the sport of horse racing. He'd be up there, and came to California to retire 1 year. Rode last year. He extended it because he was, everybody was putting him on good horses. So, he actually wanted to ride in the Kentucky Derby. He, wanted to win one of the classics. So, he didn't find a horse for it, but it's going to be exciting. He's got a great personality. But he's really competitive, and he's really smart. And he's 53 years old.
Wow.
And when he rides like he's a 20-year-old, and so he's very competitive, smart, knows where to put a horse, does not get, the pressure doesn't get to him, because in Europe, they have to be, not only do they have to be great jockeys, they have to be great horsemen, because in America, when you go to the gate, you have a lead pony that takes you to the gate. And in Europe, when you get on the horse, you're by yourself. And you have to take your horse all the way to the gate, which is probably a mile away.
Wow.
And they have to stay on the horse. And so that takes quite horsemanship. So I think their riders are probably, the top riders are better than our riders, because they're great horsemen, And so he's and if that horse wins, he's a great, when he celebrates, he leaps off the horse. He's got this signature. I don't know how he does it without busting his knees up, but he's got the flying dismount. He started that, and he's a funny guy, but his personality, he's bigger than life.
It's cool.
He's just unbelievable.
I had a flying dismount a few times, but it wasn't my choice.
You were drunk those times, mostly.
Hey, Bob, I wanted to ask you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you.
I've had a few flying dismounts when I was skiing. When I used to try to snow ski, I had a few of those.
Hey, I wanted to ask you. I know we're not going to go back to the days of when we used to run 2-year-olds a lot, leading up to their 3-year-old season, and then the Triple Crown. Have we? I asked Larry Collmus this about 25 minutes ago. Do you think the game has changed so much now that there needs to be a rethinking of the structure of the Triple Crown, where you have a longer length between the 3 races?
Well, first of all, Larry Collmus is probably the wrong person to ask. The poor guy is in a little 5x6 booth all day long. I mean, those guys are crazy. They got to be up there all day. But they talk to themselves. They got too much time to think about things. But he's a great announcer.
He's really good. Yes.
You know what? It's a traditional thing. I don't know if the Triple Crown would mean the same, because there's only been 13. It's really difficult. I mean, I've been through it 5 times, and when I'd get beat, I'd walk away, and what happened? I finally realized you need a superior horse to do it.
Yeah.
And I think if you spread it out, it'd just be another big race. But I really think you have the Derby, which is this huge Derby, and then 2 weeks later, I think you want to keep that audience capped. It's a captive audience for 2 weeks. If you wait a month later, what they're running? What are they running this week? You know what I mean? It's
I'm hearing your perspective. It's interesting to get such a diversity.
And I think the thing is, but the problem is that we have a whole new younger trainers, and the analytics has come into horse racing where your horse runs, if you give him a month, he'll perform better. And a lot of these trainers, they don't want to come in there. Everybody would just automatically go to the Preakness. That was part of the show, you know. And so, but now they feel like, well, I'm not going to go if I'm these trainers don't want to run if they're 10-1 or 20-1, and so they'd rather just wait for the Belmont or something like that instead of taking a chance where, you know, old school guys, well, you know, if our horse is doing well, we're going to run him in the next one. You know, we're going to take a chance and run him in the next one. And so it's like, you know, it's like if they let the NFL players say, well, we don't want to play next week. We need a couple extra weeks there, you know. It's something that they've talked about, stretching it out. Would it be, you know, they'd probably have bigger fields if they did that, and maybe it'll work, but I think it would lose its, you know, the excitement of it all. You know, it's not going to be, because the third, if they win a month later and they go for the triple, it's not going to feel like the Triple Crown. It's just another big $2 million race, you know.
It's interesting to get that perspective, but you trained 3 horses that won the first 2 legs, Silver Charm, Real Quiet, and War Emblem. Are they really that much?
5 of them.
5 of them. Okay,
Yeah.
I was going over it quickly. You've done 5 of them. Are
5.
they really that much lesser horses than American Pharaoh and Justify because of that?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Had the first 3, they got beat.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the American Pharaoh came along, and I thought, but I did have another one that got beat in the Derby. His name was Point Given. He should have done it, but he got it was a weird, you know, you didn't get the trip, and you have to get the trip.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's been great horses getting beat. You know, we've had Spectacular Bid. He could have done it, but you need to get the trip in all 3, and you have to be lucky. But American Pharaoh, you know, he barely got through in the Derby. It was his toughest race, and he didn't bring his Super A game. But after that, oh my God, it was like we knew you know, he just needs a break in the clear, and he's just so much better than these horses. He's, you know, you need a horse that is superior and the best of his crop, way the best of his crop.
Bob, I know we got to let you go because you got a busy day. I've got to knock out 2 real quick. One, are you rooting for weather tomorrow, or is that a problem for imagination if we got slop tomorrow?
I don't like wet weather. I like to be a beautiful day for the sake of Pimlico and for the fans to enjoy. You know, you don't want to see rain, you know, but I guess it's supposed to rain. I don't know. I haven't really checked with the weather, but you know, I like a nice, safe track. You know, I like it when it's dry and stuff. But well, you know, you just have to deal with the elements. I remember American Pharaoh. It was a beautiful day, and then right when we saddled him up, I think we got. Remember that? It was terrible.
Yeah,
it was like a river of rain.
Correct. It was a deluge. Yeah.
Remember that?
I do.
And he came back. Matter of fact, the jockeys weighed in at 126 pounds, and Victor Spinoza, when he weighed in after the race, he weighed like 140, maybe 135 because of the wet.
Wow.
His boots were full of water and everything. That was a difference.
Bob, I just have to tell you one thing real quick. The Belmont of American Pharaoh, I was there. It's one of the most exciting sporting events I've ever been at. It was just a magical.
Emotional moment. And then,
it was.
Bob, before we let you go, if I could, we want to run it by everybody. You've won this race 8 times. I know what this place means to you. Knowing that the deal is done, the law was signed this week, and that it's over, the conversation that we've had for so much longer, that there will be a new Pimlico in the next decade and the Preakness will remain here, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm glad that they're going to, keep the Preakness here. I hope they leave the track the way it is. I've heard rumors that they want to reconfigure the track. I hope they don't do that. It needs to stay the same. It's a good track, good surface, and it's exciting. I think it's good for the city of Baltimore, and we love coming here. It's a very relaxed, and it's still a very important race. It's a lot of tradition, a lot of history, and I have had great experiences here. Yeah, it's the only track where you can come and you can get beat, but you still had a good time. You come back, you go, oh yeah, I'll do that again. I've gone to places where, hey, adios, I'm not coming back here again. But it's not. I've never felt that way about coming to the Preakness. We always have a good time.
That's because of the crab cakes.
Yeah, that doesn't suck. That part does not suck. The food here in Baltimore. Bob Baffert, thank you for spending time with us this morning. Best of luck with Imagination tomorrow, and look forward to continuing these conversations for years to come.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, guys. All right.
The legendary Bob Baffert with us this morning here on GCR. Again, one horse, unfortunately, Muth. Not going to be able to run tomorrow, but Imagination will be running in the Preakness.
Interesting to get that difference of opinion, yet he did acknowledge that he acknowledged in his own way that it probably is going to change because the younger people that are doing it.
I think the point, and it's the one that I think a lot of people harped on, and you said you were in this group. I think I was in this group. Is that like it's supposed to be hard? I say this all the time when people talk about the what do you call the neighborhood play at second base? I'm like, it's not supposed to be easy to get 2 outs on one play.
Right.
It's not like making it easier. Hey, if at least you were near the base. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
You're getting 2 outs
Right.
on one batter. That's supposed to be hard. And it's not supposed to be easy for a horse to win a Triple Crown, or else it wouldn't mean what it means.
But the big difference is that as 2-year-olds, these horses don't run.
Correct.
They run like 3 times. They're not seasoned enough to run 3 times in 6 weeks. I think the nature of the game has changed so much that it's near impossible for horses that don't run more times as a 2-year-old to be ready to do it 3 times in 6 weeks.
The point, I think that he's still on the I don't want to devalue the Triple Crown, the history, which the measurement against that is, but are you devaluing the individual races by not moving them?
No.
And we thought there was a chance that this year the date was going to there was a lot of talk that the Preakness folks were going to go rogue,
right,
and say
we're doing it in late June.
We're just doing it. This is the way it's going to be because they've been through it the last couple of years where at most they've had the Derby champion run in the Preakness. Right. There was, of course, the one year where there was the Stewards inquiry in the Derby. They didn't end up getting the Derby winner to show up for the Preakness. So there was a real thought that they were just going to step in and say, look, if you guys aren't going to work with us, we're just doing this on our own.
Right.
Now, that didn't happen this year, and maybe part of that is just trying to get all of their other, eyes dotted.
I think it's
going
to happen. I really do.
I am finally leaning that way myself as well.
Even if it's 3 weeks, maybe not a month or something like that. Or maybe it's 3 weeks between the Derby and the Preakness and then a month to the Belmont where it's 1.5 miles.
I mean, I wonder if the 3 weeks is enough, right? Like just 3 weeks.
Look, I think a month. I think you start a new tradition the first Saturday of all 3 months.
I guess part of the to your point, I wonder if part of the problem is that they don't want to run the Preakness on Memorial Day weekend. Like they just don't want the people going to Ocean City.
We'll say run it the first Saturday, like June 3rd or 4th or something like that.
It'd be interesting to see. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they go about it.
I think it's going to come, though.
I think you're right.
The nature of the people that are in the horse game now, they just don't like to race the horses.
They've sort of said the value of winning the Triple Crown, or it's just not.
Now, if suddenly they said, hey, we're going to spike the winnings, winning winner's purse.
And I know that they've tried to do a few of those things.
But it's not enough. The horse values are so great.
All right. Hey, it is championship season. We got the MIAA Lacrosse Championships this weekend as well down at Navy. And for all the latest on championship season in lacrosse and then the upcoming bracket release for baseball and softball, check out countysports.zone. County Sports Zone is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. We come back in. We'll preview Orioles Mariners this weekend. Rick Rizzs joins us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles in studio with us. You and Eric Garfield got together last night.
Yeah, we went over. Eric really is really following this Florida Complex League, which used to be the Florida Coast League. And we went over a lot of the Oriole prospects. It was interesting. And we also had some interesting discussions about those players and how quickly these international signees, they come and go rather quickly. If it's seen that they can't float in the water, they're gone pretty quickly. So it's the pressures on these kids.
You can find that right now, facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab there. Or go to youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan and Eric every Thursday. Stan, Ross, and Luke every Monday. talking baseball with you, and you can find it all, again, facebook.com/PressBoxSports to watch all of them live. Orioles Mariners set for a 3-game series this weekend after the Orioles narrowly avoid their first sweep in over 100 series. They keep the streak alive on Wednesday thanks to Adley Rutschman's walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th inning. As we mentioned earlier, John Means has been tabbed to start the opener tonight. We await on word for everything. And the weather, it's, again, for tomorrow, it don't look great. I think tonight, as I say that,
I think they'll get the game.
I think you're right, that they're going to be okay, considering what they played in last Friday.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's awful being at the ballpark last Friday. You're right. There's like a 20% chance of rain tonight. It doesn't seem like it's going to be significant enough for it to impact the game. But tomorrow, rain in the forecast throughout the day. Right up until, oddly, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Well, now there's still some rain in the forecast at that point. But rain in the forecast throughout the course of the day tomorrow, so we'll see what impact that has if the game ends up getting delayed. I did think it was weird that they, both the Blue Jays and the Orioles had an off day yesterday, and they decided to move.
I have a feeling it had something to do with the MLBPA, that the Orioles wouldn't have a chosen day off for a long while, I think.
Yeah, because they only have one off day total in June, which is a very odd sort of thing. So, yes, they decided to do the doubleheader in July.
It's going to be a one-admission doubleheader?
Single admission, yeah. Single admission doubleheader. I believe it's the 29th is the date for that.
Yeah, June 29th.
A Monday.
Yeah.
And so that's what they decided to do instead of trying to make up, play a doubleheader. Obviously, I understood the decision not to try to play a doubleheader the next day because, the weather didn't look good on Wednesday either. And so trying to pull that off seemed like a bit much. Ultimately, I do think they could have in hindsight, but I get why the decision was made to not try to force the issue for a doubleheader the next day. Orioles-Mariners this weekend. The Mariners, of course, come into this weekend in first place in the AL West at 24-20 on the season. Let's talk a little bit more about them, preview the series with their longtime radio play-by-play voice. Always a pleasure to welcome back into the program the great Rick Rizzs, who's with us now here on GCR. Rick, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, anytime for you guys. Thank you again, Glenn. Thank you, Stan. And, the Mariners are on a nice roll on top of the American League West. It's going to be a great series starting tonight here in Baltimore.
Rick, let me pose it to you this way. The Mariners being in first place right now has more to do with what they're doing or more to do with what other teams in the division have not been doing so far this season?
Can I say both?
Yeah,
that's a good answer. Yeah.
It's both. You need a little help along the way. The Mariners' offense was sputtering in the early part of the year, and now the offense is coming around. But the strength of this club has been the starting pitching. They're amazing, and they're young.
Yep.
I mean, of course, you got the Rock on top of the rotation there. Luis Castillo is 31, but then you have Logan Gilbert, who's 26, and then George Kirby, who's 25. Bryce Miller's 24. Brian Wu is 24. We had Emerson Hancock in the rotation. The Mariners, when Hancock was in the rotation, guys, the Mariners had 3 consecutive first-round picks in the rotation with Logan Gilbert in 2018 out of Stetson, George Kirby in 2019 out of Little Elon University, and then Emerson Hancock was a first-round pick in 2020. But the strength of this club, no doubt about it, the starting pitching, they have been absolutely phenomenal. The bullpen has been really, really good again. Andres Munoz just gets everybody out. So it's a really fun team to be watching now. The offense is coming around. And so I'm looking for an exciting year here in 2024 for this ball club.
The offense so far of the Seattle Mariners, what kind of grade would you give it collectively?
Well, right now, they're getting much, much better over the last couple of weeks. At the start of the year, I wouldn't give them a good grade at all because there were 7 guys who were really struggling. Josh Rojas was the one guy who was consistent. The platoon over at third base has been very good for the Mariners. Jerry DePoto went out and made that trade. Paul Sewald last year to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Josh Rojas comes over in that deal with the ball club. He's been outstanding and playing really good defense. Luis Arias with Milwaukee and Boston last year has been a nice compliment over at third base. The guy can play third. He's getting his big base hit. So collectively the offense was just not there. Cal Raleigh is one of the most exciting players, I think, in the game of baseball. They really got hurt when J.P. Crawford was hurt about 3 weeks ago. He was really the MVP of the ball club last year.
Mm-hmm.
But he came up with a strained oblique, so you missed a lot there. But Dylan Morris filled in beautifully, at shortstop. He's got his big base hits along the way. Dom Canzone was hurt. He crashed in the wall in a series at home against the Chicago Cubs. Ty France was struggling. He's not struggling anymore. Luke Raley was struggling. He's not struggling anymore. Raley has been one of the hottest hitters, I think, in the American League in the month of May. Cal Raleigh hits the ball out of the ballpark. Mitch Haniger is going again. Julio Rodriguez got off to a really slow start, but now he's looking like Julio Rodriguez. Again, I'm not worried about this kid. He's going to be an MVP in this league one day real soon. So the offense is now starting to catch up to the pitching, and it's a really exciting team to watch.
Rick Rizzs, longtime play-by-play voice of the Mariners, with us here on GCR. Rick, there has been for years we've been having this conversation about will the Mariners, trade from their pitching surplus that you reference in order to try to bolster their lineup. And to your point, the offense does seem to be coming around a little bit. Do you feel like they have enough internally with what they have, or at some point does it still seem like they're going to have to? We talk about it almost the exact opposite way in Baltimore, although this year the pitching's been phenomenal. Like it was almost the exact opposite scenario here. Like, do you have to trade from the surplus of bats? Is there still a conversation about that in Seattle?
Well, I think they were waiting for the offense to come around, and now I think they do have the type of offense where they can get to the playoffs again, like they did a couple of years ago. But they do have a surplus. They still have a bunch of kids down in the minor leagues around the way, more position players recently over the last couple of years than what they did on the pitching side. So I wouldn't be surprised. That's above my pay grade, but Jared Boto has done, I think, a really good job of running this organization. Scott Service, I think, has been one of the best managers in the American League. 9th year now. Last 3 years, I thought he should have been the American League Manager of the Year at least once or twice during that span with injuries that he had to work around and things like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry pulls off a deal. He did a couple of years ago to get Luis Castillo from the Cincinnati Reds because they had a surplus of guys, good young hitters like Noelvi Marte and Arroyo, and a good pitcher in Brandon Williamson. To get Luis Castillo is now the ace of this staff. So it'll be interesting to see. Yes, they have surplus, on the pitching side. So we'll have to see if they want to go out and get an extra bat, when it comes to that time.
Two players you mentioned very briefly in passing were the right-handed pitcher Emerson Hancock. The numbers didn't look great, but yet I saw a couple, 2 or 3 really good starts dotted in there. Your thoughts on the growth of him? I know he's back pitching for Tacoma.
Yeah, they sent him back because Brian Wu was ready to go, and, he had a really good year last year coming up from the minor leagues, as did Emerson Hancock. He showed up last year, made 3 starts, and then they had to shut him down. He had a little bit of a sore shoulder, but I thought he pitched very well. When Wu was hurt at the end of spring training, Emerson just stepped right in, became the 5th starter on this ball club. But as a lot of young pitchers do, Stan and Glenn, they struggle a little bit, their first full year in the big leagues, that learning experience, you get that out of the way when you first come up to the big leagues. But he's got all the tools, and he's kind of a throwback to the older pitchers that used to pitch down in the strike zone. Everybody pitches now up in the strike zone. With Emerson Hancock, he's got to have that 2-seamer, a lot of ground ball outs. When he does that, he's in good shape. But you're right. He made 6-7 starts with us here in the early part of the year before being sent down to Tacoma. He pitched very well against the Arizona Diamondbacks. He went 6 innings, gave up 1 run. He had 3 double plays in the early part of the ball game because of that sinker. He beat Colorado 10-2 in a freezing cold day in Denver, went 6 innings, gave up 1 earned run. He beat the Chicago Cubs 4-1, his first major league win, again going 6 innings. So he's going to be back. Scott Service said, you're going to be back sometime during the course of the year. There's always injuries. So the Mariners, they have really a surplus of starters, young starters, that are here right now and also on the way.
The other guy I was going to ask you about was Dominic Canzone. I have a great deal of respect for Jerry Dipoto and his trade-making ability. He was acquired in that Seawald deal.
Yes.
What kind of player do they really think he can be?
Well, I think he can be an outstanding outfielder and put the ball in play and also hit for power. That's what he did when he showed up last season. He's very, very good defensively. That left field wall came up to him really quickly, early in the season. Man, he ran in that thing with a full head of steam and injured his shoulder. He was off to a good start, too. I mean, his previous 10 games, he was hitting around 300 and, hit the ball out of the ballpark a few times prior to the injury. So he's back now, but he can be a solid everyday player out there in left field, hit for a good average, hit for power. And, we saw him at spring training looking different than when he left at the end of the season, stronger in his legs. So I think he's going to be a heck of an outfielder for a long time.
A familiar name for folks in Baltimore that is actually finding a lot of success this season in Seattle. What has Austin Voth brought to that Mariners bullpen?
Stability. You got the guys at the back end of the bullpen. We were supposed to have Matt Brash back, but he just had Tommy John surgery last week, so he's obviously out for the year. And Andres Munoz. So when Brash went down, we also acquired Gregory Santos from the Chicago White Sox. He was hurt at spring training, missed all of spring training, so we're not sure when he's going to be back, maybe July. So they pick up Ryan Stanek to help out in the back end of the bullpen along with Andres Munoz. But you need those guys to get to those guys. And Austin Voth, with a lot of experience, comes in real quiet. He just goes out there every day and does his job. He gets people out. He comes in. He can get you multi-innings and get you from. He can be a bridge guy from the 6th to the 7th, 7th to the 8th. So he's been a great addition to this bullpen. This organization always seems to find guys from other organizations that come in here. They're always pretty good, but they always seem to make them better. They can see if they can reshape a pitch or add a pitch. They're just really good at doing that, and they've done that for many, many years here, and we're lucky to have Austin Voth in our bullpen.
18 base runners over 17 and a third innings, a 1.04 whip. That's obviously outstanding. He's given up 6 total earned runs. Very good start for former Oriole Austin Voth. Rick Rizzs, these two teams, all the young talent, lots of pitching, should be a really exciting series, and maybe a preview of things to come a little bit later on this year. Rick, thank you for taking the time for us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to the brother against brother in this series because we have Luis Urias.
Right.
And you guys have Ramon Urias.
Yeah, the battle of the Uriases.
We'll trade you one for the other.
No, I like our guy. I like our guy a lot, man. He's got some power. He can play third base. He's a fun kid to watch, and we'll take this younger brother.
Buck used to say that. I like my guy.
Yep,
I like
no doubt.
Guy.
Thank you.
I like my guy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. Enjoy your weekend in Baltimore. All right.
All right, we will. Thanks a lot. I'm going to get some crab right now.
Very good. Rick Rizzs, Mariners play-by-play voice. Appreciate it.
He's not really going to get crab right now at 11:23.
I don't know. Maybe.
Really?
Maybe. What time does he probably get to the ballpark? He might
probably like 3 o'clock.
I'm thinking Rick Rizzs might get there earlier in the afternoon. I don't know, man. He's a baseball guy. I just feel like he's the type of guy that likes being at a ballpark. Like really enjoys being there. We continue along here on a Friday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by Sports and Social, the best place to watch all of the playoff action, all of the big events, the races, the fights, like Tyson Fury and Usyk tomorrow. You can watch all of those right there inside Sports and Social, just steps away from the FanDuel Sportsbook, the giant media wall.
What time is that fight?
So the card starts in the afternoon. They say the ring walk should be around 6 o'clock, but Griffin was telling me yesterday the last time there was a Saudi Arabia fight that the ring walk was more like 7 o'clock.
Right.
But it's a mid to late afternoon when you would want to start paying attention if you were to head down to Sports and Social in order to watch the fight. Maybe it'll time out perfectly that it's like the fight right into the race, but
yeah.
And then if they delay the baseball game, maybe you can point this out. If they delay the baseball game to like after 7 o'clock
and delay the Preakness.
Well, no, they don't delay the Preakness for weather. The weather, well, unless I've never noticed that before. Like if it was thunderstorms,
I think
I guess they would delay the Preakness. But for rain, they do not. We know that because, as Bob Baffert was talking about a minute ago, they have run in deluges. I mean, like just downpours over the years.
Is Miss Urton going to be in town?
Yes, Brittany, yeah, of course. She already is. She was hosting the draw the other day. Yeah.
She is something else.
She's a very talented woman. No question about
that. She really is. She's
going
to be a huge star in sports.
I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But, yeah, she did the draw the other day from, I think they did it at Monarch was where they hosted that this year. When we come back in, speaking of the Preakness, we are going to meet for the first time the executive director of the new Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. It's a mouthful.
The MTROA.
Okay, there. MTROA. We got to work on it. Marc Broady is going to join us and tell us a little bit more about the new entity and what this is going to look like moving forward with the bill signed this week and what it means for horse racing in the state of Maryland. That's next. Stands here, Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis. AJMichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flight's Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
Of course, Preakness tomorrow at Pimlico, and we now officially know as of this week, the bill has been signed into law by Governor Wes Moore, that there is going to be a new look to everything about horse racing in the state of Maryland. So we wanted to find out what that actually means tangibly, and so the people we wanted to talk to were from the new entity that's going to be in charge of horse racing here in the state of Maryland, the Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. And joining us now here on GCR, Executive Director Marc Broady and Chairman Greg Cross are with us this morning. Mark and Greg, it's Glenn and Stan the Fan Charles here in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you so much for spending a couple of minutes with us.
Happy to do it, and congratulations on getting the mouthful that is our organization name out.
We have mentioned a couple times this morning. I got to be honest with you. MTROA, is that what we work with?
Yeah, we just go with MTROA. I haven't tried a phonetic pronunciation, but trying to say the full thing is still a challenge for me.
I'd love to know the pay grade of someone who came up with that name.
It was not me.
Hey, I just have to throw real quick. Greg, are you there?
Yes.
Greg, did we play fantasy baseball one year together?
We did.
Yep, I thought that was your name.
Is that league still going? I'm still playing with my law school league.
Yeah, we're still going on.
Yeah, and Stan still drafts. Everybody he drafts gets hurt, so It's just the curse of being drafted to Stan's team. Unfortunately, is the way it works.
Yeah, I had Muth
on. I'll have to get some word from you next year so I can
avoid those guys.
All right.
Yeah, ask him who he loves, and then stay the heck away from him. Is the way it should work. Mark, I'll start with you. I'll make the question really simple. What is the Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority?
Yeah, thank you very much for having us today. The Operating Authority is an entity created legislatively to figure out what to do with Maryland racing. We had to reevaluate everything that had been done the years prior, which, as we all know, did not end in success, and figure out a path forward, make a recommendation to the legislature, which we did on January 5th, and then let the legislature and the governor figure out what they wanted to do with our recommendations.
Can I jump in and ask you both? I must have fallen asleep at some point over the last 3 years from the time it was going to be, they were going to reshape Pimlico and move the Preakness to Laurel, and then they came up with the idea of just having the Preakness there to reshape Pimlico, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose, and you're basically, is a decision been made whether Laurel will close because of the expenditures on the new Pimlico?
Well, none of that economically worked.
Okay.
So the budget, everything they tried, that's why this authority, that's part of what gave rise to this authority. They were $160 million to $300 million over budget.
Okay.
On all the approaches, and we were clearly going to invest in Pimlico for the Preakness, and it made sense since that's a historic home of Maryland racing anyway to consolidate racing there.
Okay.
And the foot fault had been we got too many horses for Pimlico, so the sort of magic elixir was to add a training center to it.
And so that still hasn't been decided where that training center is going to be, correct?
That's right.
So
that'll have to be decided this summer.
Okay, so that's still in the play. So the timeline that everybody has talked about so much, and Greg, I'll go to you. How this works, because and I know you guys have already talked about this in other interviews. Like you all are aware that there are a lot of people in this state that say, well, we've been hearing about this for decades. We'll believe it when we see it, right? The timeline that now exists is what, and why is it that this time we should understand this is real, this is actually happening, this is decided, unlike all of the many, as Stan alludes to, all the many things that we had heard about in years past?
I've gotten that question several times. So the Stadium Authority is going out for construction bids right now. We're working with architects to get final designs right now, and the timeline is that after this Preakness, all racing will move to Laurel, other than the 2025 Preakness and a few races right before it. And our intent is to be back to open Pimlico for Preakness 2027.
Interesting. So can you explain to me what the Stronachs gave up and why they were willing to give up their ownership in the track In other words, all they own now is the Preakness? Am I correct in that?
Right. They have the intellectual property to the Preakness, and we pay a licensing fee out of Preakness proceeds.
But they gave up all the rights to the racing dates in the state of Maryland.
And all the rights to Pimlico, they transferred that to the state for $1 or will.
Okay.
All the state's history and memorabilia, and we will have permanent custody of the Woodland Vase as well.
So why did they do that?
And the Maryland Jockey Club. The Maryland Jockey Club as well. Brett.
Oh, yeah, don't forget the name. Good point,
Yeah, the
Mark.
Maryland
we
Jockey
got the name
Club.
as well.
Right. So why did the Stronachs do that? Was it because they realized that the finances were beyond their width and breadth to make it happen?
You know, this is the classic case where it's the perfect spot for a large government investment because the returns weren't sufficient for a private operator to put $400 million in. But from a state perspective, we got a $3 billion economic impact. So it makes makes all the sense in the world for the state to make the investment. And here, and I support the other investments the state has made, but in this instance, as opposed to giving it to somebody who owns a team, we're giving it to ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're going to control it, right? So from Stronach's perspective, they're going to get licensing fees off of Pimlico. We're going to continue to use some of their associated, services in connection with it. And we've essentially struck a partnership to a degree because they've announced a new $25 million race, and we'll be the second jewel of that. It's run from Gulfstream, then Pimlico, and then Santa Anita.
Wow.
So, I think I said the other day, we're always the second leg, it appears, but which is good. So they've got a partnership, they get a stream of income, and it was something that they weren't going to put $400 million in, and that's what it was going to require.
Yeah. It sounds like a win-win for everybody.
It sure does.
It really does.
Greg Cross is the chairman. Marc Broady is the executive director of the Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. They're with us this morning on GCR. Mark, for the future now, right? Because, and I read you guys talking about, hey, what we want the Preakness to be. But Pimlico Plus is a term that I've heard a lot about during this. What is Pimlico Plus? What are the priorities for what this looks like, not just for Preakness weekend and for horse racing, but for the neighborhood and for the entire year?
Yeah, well, great question. Well, I mean, the plus, is because it's not just Pimlico with a few days of racing for Preakness and then, pretty much an empty area for the remainder of the year. I mean, we're going to have a lot of activity there. There's going to be a hotel that we're looking to get a private operator to help us with. There's going to be community benefits. There's going to be interspersed housing throughout the community. There was a $10 million amount that goes directly to the Park Heights community, rightfully so. There's just going to be a lot more activity. They'll be able to have proms and things like that of that nature there. Year-round racing, maybe, I don't know, Greg, 140, 160 days of racing. We're still kind of figuring that all out. But that's what the plus stands for. It's just going to be we're going to make Preakness great again. It's going to be amazing. I mean, everything is just going to be amped up at Pimlico.
And Greg, could you give me some of the details? Because I remember during this process we heard a lot about there would be comparisons to, say, golf tournaments, that like the new Pimlico would have far less, permanent seating and more the ability to create these, I guess Northwestern football is going to play with like a temporary stadium this year while their stadium is being done. Is that what, from the actual tangible aspect of it, is that what the ultimate Pimlico is going to look like?
No, well, I would say it's down the middle. So we've got the plans, the conceptual plans, and we're going to be working on design over the next 6 months, final design. But the conceptual plans sort of split it into two parts. There'll be a day-to-day hub that has a sports book, a fine dining restaurant, and seatings for people who are coming on a day-to-day basis. And that's not huge crowds. That will connect to a larger event space that'll be there for the Preakness, or if the Breeders' Cup is here, or Maryland Million. But that space will also open up for events. So it'll seat 1,000 people. So instead of, having to go to other venues around town, I didn't know this. I mean, Stan, you might remember, but apparently, Pimlico used to be the place that proms were held.
I do.
I mean, there's no
it's
reason
funny. I lived in the neighborhood and I didn't remember that. It's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, so it was, we're creating a new venue space that will be available for people all throughout the city, and Park Heights certainly. And then, to your point, we're cutting the size. I don't know the percentage, so you can't really hold me to it. But let's say it's 50%. The rest of it could be built out with overlay, so you can do it with tents and bleachers and those kind. And that's what everybody's doing. They're doing the same thing at Belmont. They're cutting they're cutting it in half, and they're still half again bigger than us because that was just an enormous facility. But that's what you do for golf tournaments. And the group that's advising us and doing the architecture does that for the Olympics. They do it for the Super Bowl. So we have exactly the right people to give us advice on what that should look like.
And I assume, like Major League Sports, there will be upper end seating much greater than there was in the past. Boxes, mezzanine section. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Which makes it more profitable. That's something I mean, in fairness to the Stronach Group, they really haven't had. They've had to pay for anything that they wanted to put in like that, which just made it prohibitively expensive and thus profitable.
Yeah. Fascinating topic to talk about. Yeah.
So, and guys, really do appreciate it. I know we got to let you go because I hear it's a big weekend. I hear there's things that are going on that you have to deal with.
We'd like to continue this conversation.
Sure. If I could, is there anything still? Like, it feels like at the moment all of the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. But going back to the doubts that people, is there anything that still matters? Like, hey, we still got to make sure this gets cleared, or we still got to make sure is it done, or is there still something that we need to be monitoring in the coming weeks or months, years?
We're finishing due diligence on sort of ancillary contracts, but they're just ancillary contracts, like. I'm not true, but hot dog vendor contract, that kind of level.
Guys, do I have time for one? Do I have time for one quickie?
Yep, go ahead.
Craig Thompson. So I understand the relationship between the Stadium Authority and you guys, or your organization now. Did he name you guys? In other words, was he the one who decided who would be on the committee?
No, the governor appointed me. Craig's my law partner, but the governor appointed me, and Mark is our. I was lucky enough to find Mark in the last summer, and he came on board.
Okay.
You know what?
With the full support of the governor as well.
We are. Great. Everything sounds really good, guys. Like, we are really, as you all know, we've been waiting decades for this, and so. The excitement about the possibility is overwhelming. We really would like to continue these conversations moving forward as everything plays out, if that's all right with you all.
We'll talk to you in the future.
Okay. Look forward to it, Greg and Mark.
Greg
Dan,
Cross.
make sure you send me who's going to be broken down on your fantasy team so I can stay away.
All right, I will do that. Hey, I'd like to get back in touch. I'd like to be back in touch.
Greg Cross, Marc Broady. By the way, is there anywhere where people can find out more about the authority that we could send them to, direct them to find out more about it?
We have a website, Mark can point over there, and that has some of the third-party reports and our report from January on it. Mark, do you have that?
Yeah, it's mtroa.maryland.gov. If you just Google MTROA, it'll pop up.
Okay.
And we have press releases, and we'll be updating things on there.
Great, Mark, Greg.
But it has the consultants' reports and the conceptual plans as well.
Tremendous, Mark, Greg. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Sure. You have a day. Have a great day. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Marc Broady, Greg Cross, Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. Look, it all sounds...
Most interesting part, there's going to be a sports book there, which makes perfect sense, but the government had to do something. I'm sure the state had to approve that.
I feel like that was in the initial, like, hey, we want to give the option for all of the sports facilities to have an on-site book.
Yeah.
I feel like that was part of the conversation.
But the tracks never put up the licensing fee, the fee to...
I think part of the problem was the confusion about what was going to happen with it, like how is this all going to play out? Look, I am extraordinarily encouraged. This has been the weird part for me, Stan. Like, it feels like this should have been a week it was brought up to me earlier this week. Hey, are you going to be talking about the story? And I was having trouble reaching out to folks.
You're right.
I was reaching out to the politicians that were involved to say, can we talk about this? I had Griffin chasing down, and nobody seemed to be interested in, which then, falls back on all of my fears. Like, hey, is this not really what we think it is?
Right.
Like, it feels like a week where they should be celebrating, and it's Preakness week. We should be out in front of this talking about the future of Pimlico and the future of Preakness.
It's
and
probably come together so quickly over the last, and with the timing of the race now, that I'm sure these are real people.
Oh, I know they're real people. It's just that's what's made it so odd to me is that it was so difficult for us to. And I want to give Greg and Mark credit because they, obviously they took the questions and they agreed to do it. And we didn't even ask for both of them. They volunteered both of them coming on to talk to us, and I greatly appreciate that. But, first of all, transparency with anything related to this. I want that. And then, two, it really does feel to me like what they're telling us should be a poppin' bottles. Like they should be out, in front of everyone talking about how good this will be for the industry, how good it will be for the community, how good it will be for the state. And
I think it's still so early on, and I think it's going to happen. I just don't think they're ready for popping bottles yet.
It just feels like, man, the timing
was
work. Like this is the week. Let's do it. Like right now, you got the eyes on you. Let's celebrate this week.
I think next year there will be much more
and
visible plans going into next Preakness.
Right.
There will be.
We can show you more.
Yeah.
That's probably something. There's probably some of that too. And next year is slated to be the final Preakness at the current Pimlico. And then the 2 years off.
Right.
But appreciate Mark and Greg taking the time for us this morning.
I wonder if at the new Pimlico they'll have a guy that comes out and punches a horse.
I don't think that's going to be part of the new.
I'd like to get that job. You know who would be perfect?
You remember
who would be perfect for that job?
I don't think we're going to send Griffin. Do you remember what that guy's name was?
No.
For years, it was like one of those names that everybody in town remembered.
I do not remember it. I saw it. That's like right up there with the guy that parachuted into the Riddick Bowe Holyfield fight.
that fan man. I was thinking of the guy that flew the plane into the stadium.
Donald Croner.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Before we do,
I was at the Tyson ear bite.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Before we do this week in the rest of baseball, I just want to take a second, if I could, because David Rubenstein was on 105.7 yesterday, chatting with Jason and Ken and Tim Barbalace in the afternoon. And, it was pleasant. It was a pleasant conversation, and as we've talked about a lot, for the most part, David Rubenstein has struck the right notes and hit the right chords since he took over, and I think everybody enjoyed him, spraying everybody down with water last Friday and
then giving away the hats.
And gift cards and things along those lines. And I listened to the full interview. He said he was going to do it this weekend. He was going to go up to the upper deck and throw hats out to people this weekend, which
my people,
I think that's a good thing to do, right? Like, hey, you guys matter too. We want you to know that. I think he's done a lot of good things. I'll pull. Do you have the marker from the clip that I asked about Griffin? This is I just want to play this. This was a question that Tim asked, and I think there was a follow up from Ken, and we can react to it. This was from 105.7 The Fan yesterday.
Is that possible to get back to that number or possibly exceed that number in the future?
It's close.
I don't want to comment on that now because I think it's too early. I'm still getting my feet on the ground, but I'm going to be guided by, and my ownership team will be guided by what Mike Elias recommends. He knows this area really well, and I have the greatest respect for him. So I don't want to hint one way or the other, but obviously I'm familiar with what's going on in baseball, the economics of baseball, the economics for small teams or small city teams in baseball. So, I'm in it to win, and I want to win, and I want to make it a team that everybody in Baltimore is proud of. But beyond that, I don't think I should say anything specific.
David, I do want to ask you, you're very active on social media, and I don't know if you look at your mentions, but it seems like whenever you post something Orioles related, the first 5 comments in response are, when is the Gunnar extension? When is the Adley extension? Do you just laugh when you see that?
Well, I just don't think there's any advantage for me to commenting at this time on those subjects. You can assume I'm familiar with the issues involved and assume that I know what the fans are interested in. So I'll just leave it at that. I am familiar with it.
And we can stop there. So the first question that Tim asked was about the payroll total in general. That was the figure that he wanted to get back to, and then the follow-up.
Right.
And I have no problem.
What figure did he?
And
Tim
I don't remember what the
I think
number.
it was like 150, 160, because he was referring to the 2014, 16, like when they were spending money.
And I want to say this thing: I have no actual problem with the way that David Rubenstein answered the question, because what he's sort of saying is like, I know that you're trying. I don't have it for you. I feel like in the praise that we gave him for, and he even referenced that, like, I want to win, I want to do that, and what we liked about him saying he wanted to win the World Series. I don't feel like there would be any danger for David Rubenstein to say something generic like, if Mike Elias wants to sign a player and believes that player is worth this value, then I'm not going to end up standing in the way of that. I don't think there would be any risk to, because one of the things that you don't want to do as an owner is to say, oh, we're going to sign all these guys, when you don't even know if the guys are going to be willing to sign. And it's one of the things that we brought up the entire time, is that the uniqueness of Adley Rutschman getting into arbitration next year and being able to make real money at that point, his camp might just say, we're making money. We don't need to do anything with you. We're making our money now. We're good. And we got a real nice signing bonus. He's not wanting for anything, so we're going to go ahead and go to the market. And then, of course, the other two guys being Scott Boras clients, it's just not likely that you're going to. So I understand why he's not going to come out and say something like, we're going to do everything in our power to sign these guys. Because he knows as well as the rest of us do that it's not that simple. Like, you can't make these guys sign.
It doesn't just happen magically because you say it.
100%. So you don't want to set the bar there, and then when you don't sign them, have a fan base that's furious and says, well, what happened to you saying you're going to do everything in your power to sign? Right. So that part of it I completely understand, and I don't think that he should say that. I just feel like there might be an in-between in those things, between saying, I'm not going to say anything about it at all, and saying, when he says, well, I want to win a World Series, and if that, I'm going to be willing to spend money. I don't think there's any danger to that. I don't think there's anything that somebody can hold back on you and say, well, you didn't sign Adley Rutschman. Unless, of course, the answer is that he's not. But I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's the case.
And he also didn't say something, and I'm a friend and a fan of John Angelo's. But John's comments last year, we can't sign these players unless we raise ticket prices dramatically. Sign the players first, and then let the fans decide.
100%. 100%. That was a mistake there.
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with the way it's. I just feel like there's another way that people around David Rubenstein could say, hey, there might be another way to say this. Mm-hmm. Without really saying anything, but yet feeling more encouraging for the fan base. I feel like there might be an area between these two things.
But I didn't find anything discouraging.
That's where I'm at. Like, I don't have a problem with it at all, and I just feel like maybe in the next round of interviews that he does, maybe somebody could grab him and say, hey, let's think about, because you can tell he's guarded. I don't think there's anything for me to be gained by discussing this topic. Yep. I get what you're saying, other than it does make the fan base feel good for you to say there's a chance. Yep. So I just feel like there might be a way that could be worded or coached or whatever it is between he and his team for that to be answered in a different way moving forward. That was the only thing that I thought from it. But I listened to the entire conversation, and it was pleasant. It was a pleasant, he continues to largely say and do the right things since taking over as owner of the Orioles. All right, let's do this.
Oh, we almost did.
Boy, so close. So close.
A bar.
Yes, that's exactly what it was, Stan. So close.
This week
in the rest of
baseball.
This week in the rest of baseball is brought to you by the print issue of Press Box, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Jim Palmer approved cover story from Luke Jackson all about Grayson Rodriguez. Go pick that up today. That'll be on newsstands for next 3 to 4 weeks as we've started to work on the next.
Moving very, very well.
Excellent. Love to hear that. And we are starting to work on the next print issue of Press Box. And looking forward to that one as well, but this one's still going to be out there for a few more weeks. All right, Griffin, what happened in baseball away from the Orioles this week?
So a lot of things happened. I guess I'll try to go in chronological order here. So Paul Skeens on Saturday last weekend did make his Major League Baseball debut.
Is he pitching again today?
Yes, today,
Okay.
220. They're in Chicago playing the Cubs. So both his first two starts will be against the Cubs.
Is that an MLB Network? I'd like to hope it is.
I want to say it's like free TV game of the day.
No, it's on MLB Network. It's on MLB
good.
Network.
All
Yeah.
right, good. Also free game of the day if you have
Okay.
MLB TV.
Excellent.
Paul Skeens will make or made his MLB debut. It I guess didn't really live up to the hype. They had rain, so the game got delayed. He went 4 innings, did strike out 7, but he did walk 2 batters, 6 hits, and ended up getting charged 3 runs because they were all runners that were on, and then the delay happened, and I believe they scored 3 hours later.
Okay.
It was kind of a weird debut, but yeah, Paul.
Didn't they have six bases loaded walks in a row?
Yes, because they brought in. I think that was what happened. Like whoever they brought in walked.
That's a remarkable number.
It was a weird game.
I did not realize that was a thing. That's
Jim
almost
Henneman wrote that.
That's almost impossible.
It was a very strange game. So Paul Skeens, we'll be back on the bump today, and they were calling it one of the most anticipated pitching debuts since Strasburg. Didn't, I guess, the weather didn't help, but yeah, he'll be back today, and I'd assume.
What's the weather in Chicago like today?
Yeah, right. We're gonna have
good question. I'll just say
why
I
don't
know.
you just look out your window and
if it's anything like here,
it's fine. You can play baseball.
Yeah.
Guy.
Okay, so all right, so there have been 4 pitchers in modern. I know you don't like to be doing the stats thing, but I have to do it here. So there's been 4 pitchers that have started the season with a WHIP of .72 or lower over the first 8 starts of the season, with their team winning all 8 games.
There's not really any precipitation in Chicago. There's really no precipitation in the forecast.
70s,
in Chicago.
mid-70s,
Yeah.
looks good.
Looks like a good day for baseball. Yes.
The first one guy is doing it this year, has done it this year. The other 3 guys are from the dead ball era, Hall of Famers: Christy Mathewson, Addie Joss, and Mordecai Brown.
Love Mordecai.
All before 1908.
Stan, you remember Mordecai, weren't you?
3-finger Mordecai Brown.
So this pitcher has a .72 WHIP, and also, where'd my last stat go? And also has a 1.37 ERA as well. This Phillies pitcher, he's off to an unbelievable start. I mean,
I assume it's Ranger Suarez.
Yes, Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez has just been incredible, and I mean, I
didn't realize those were. I knew he was having an awesome season. I didn't realize
I think one of the biggest stories in baseball, honestly, because of the way I feel like he's kind of come out of nowhere. Like he's been okay the last couple seasons, and now he's
pitched well in the playoffs last year.
A top end starter in what is a crowded Phillies rotation with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola.
He's been amazing.
Yeah, Aaron Nola had a complete game earlier this week as well. So Phillies are best team in baseball, looking really good, and they might have the best pitcher in baseball as well, Ranger Suarez, right now. Speaking of great pitchers, future Oriole Justin Verlander threw 7 shutout innings for the Astros.
Who was it that reported that this week? That the belief is that he would still approve a trade to the Orioles this season if it were to happen that way. Somebody reported that. One of the national. It might have been John Heyman who said that the other day. That the belief from so Justin Verlander, of course, has a full no trade clause.
We call Ben, I guess. Right?
But somebody reported this week that the belief continues. Because we remember this from last summer. Justin Verlander, originally from Virginia. Although not Northern Virginia, right? It's deeper into the state where Justin Verlander is from. The belief apparently within the Verlander camp is that he would accept a trade to the Orioles if that were to happen. Although the Astros
have suddenly, that's what I'm looking in my power rankings.
Started to win some games
Alex
again.
Bregman Mark Feinsand.
Mark Feinsand was who said
yes,
it? Okay.
Mark Feinsand.
Right. They beat Oakland 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And last week they won the last 3. They won the last 3 out of 4 last week, so 7 out of 8 games they've won.
It looks like they're starting.
Don't throw dirt on them yet.
Yeah, it looks like they're starting, and obviously, if that ends up being the case, then they're not going to be selling off.
Alex Bregman starting hitting the baseball, which is good for good for them, good for my fantasy team as well. So that's been a big development for me. But yeah, 7 shutout innings. He became he was the oldest pitcher to throw with 7 scoreless innings and 2 or fewer hits allowed since 2010, when this 47-year-old
Jamie Moyer.
Jamie Moyer
has
went
to be
7 scoreless innings.
Has to be Jamie Moyer,
allowing 2 hits or fewer. So that is the company that Justin Verlander, even though he's 6 years younger than Jamie Moyer.
I would like to get him back on the Orioles right now.
Oh, he could. By the way,
close the door maybe.
What year was it after that he came back and was in the minors with the Orioles? What year did they give him a minor league deal and he never got called up? Where he was deep in his 40s at that point.
I don't remember that at all.
Man, I remember it well because I had him on the radio show.
Wow.
And it was, I don't remember what I asked, but it was fairly innocuous, and he was, like, pissed off about it.
He was pissed?
Like, I asked something like, hey, what is the fastball at this point or something like that? And
what do you mean?
Yeah, he was annoyed by the question, like genuinely annoyed. Jamie Moyer is 61 currently.
He looks good.
He that year would have been
had to be after 2012. 2012 was his last season.
2013.
No, it wasn't 2012.
It was
in 2012. Second stint. Moyer signed a minor league deal with the Orioles on June 6th, 2 days after being released by the Rockies. The deal came with the stipulation that he would make 3 starts with AAA, and then after that, the Orioles had to promote him or grant him his release.
Did he make the starts?
He made the starts, and then they asked him to make another one, and he decided he was going to duck out. And then he also tried to pitch for the Blue Jays later that season and did not get called up to the big leagues.
So that was Dan Duquette's first year.
Yes, 100%.
So we're talking about Buck Showalter, you know, the way that he would treat Tomei.
Yes,
and
he definitely.
Vladdy. So he would have started the first playoff game. Moyer
almost no doubt that if Jamie Moyer had been called up, Buck would have still said, "That's Jamie Moyer we're talking about." We're gonna show him some. God, Buck was so excited about Vladimir Guerrero signing with the Orioles. Like, I don't know why I remember. I think it was because Drew and I were down there at spring training that week. But they did a press conference, and Buck was like fumbling over. He was trying to help Vlad button the ceremonial jersey they gave him, and he said, "This is the most nervous I've ever been." He just had such reverence for these guys when they showed up that he genuinely believed he was getting Vlad Guerrero at that point in his career. Vlad, who was hanging out in the Orioles clubhouse the other day.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Vladdy and the Blue Jays were here. Also on Sunday, this was Verlander start with Sunday. Former Terrapin Lamont Wade Jr. hit a home run for the Giants. It had a 50-degree launch angle, which is
how did it clear?
It did.
How?
It is tied for the highest launch angle in the Statcast era of an over the fence home run.
Jeez.
Lamont Jordan, the football player?
Lamont Wade.
Lamont
Wade. Yeah.
I would be surprised if Lamont Jordan would do
it
either.
Lamont Jordan was actually a hell of a basketball player. This is a true story. Lamont Jordan would work for the women's basketball team's scout team when football season ended. He was on the scout team for the Maryland women's basketball team and would go out there and would legitimately just run as a scout player for the entirety of the season. He was a hell of an athlete, too.
Yes, so Lamont Wade. Also on Monday, on Monday, Julia Morales and Jenny Cavnar made history in the Houston A's game down in Houston because it was the first time in regular season baseball game the home and road broadcast had women play-by-play callers, which was very cool. Very cool to see that.
Yep.
Julia Morales and Jenny Cavnar. On Tuesday, okay, so I don't know if you saw this stat going around. The Marlins, they played their 44th game of the season on Tuesday. The 11 years prior, they had not lost in their 44th game of the year. And it was a 0-0 tie with the Tigers, and they finally, in the 10th inning, they scored a run and they beat the Tigers 1-0. So they're 12-0 in game 44 of the season for the past 12 years now.
Super random. That's incredibly random.
It is. It was very, I want to make sure I credit. Oh, it was Brooks Gate.
Why didn't you tell us on March 11th?
Yeah, right, so we could have been.
Yeah,
right? You son of a bitch.
All right, sorry.
Bastard.
So that's obviously 12-0 now.
Help us at all.
12-0 now in Game 44 since 2013. Their record in games, they're 748 and 975 in games that aren't.
Us. That doesn't do anything for
their
us.
worst. It's the worst record in all of baseball. They have the worst record in all of baseball.
A really good producer would have
been
in
ahead
front
of
that.
And said, guys,
you should put a little wager on your account.
I'm trying to watch the Lamont Wade home run. I have no idea how it got over.
I know.
Clearly, the right fielder did not think that it was like he was there, like this is coming down, and it just snuck over.
Right. Well, because I was looking at because then I wanted to see what Adley's home run was, and his
because that one definitely
angle.
It was 43. Okay.
Yeah, so
that one similarly, you could tell Adley obviously had a lot of doubt in his mind about that possibility to get out.
Earlier this week, Ronel Blanco was ejected from a game and then followed up with a 10-game suspension.
On
for
my fantasy
sticky
team.
stuff.
On my fantasy team.
Did you see the thing on Twitter?
Stuff. No one's surprised.
He got duped by an obviously fake account.
Well, that was a fake account?
Oh,
yes, that was a
that was also
a parody
fake account?
Ronel Blanco. That was
my
also
God.
duping people.
Clearly, myself included. I didn't say it though, so I'm good. That was going around this week.
Yeah,
so that's not really Ronel Blanco.
I'm pretty sure because I saw a few go around, and every time I clicked it, it said, it was parody.
But that's a dumb parody thing then, because the fake Ronel Blanco said, "I didn't say that." That's not funny. Like, if you're gonna be a parody,
well, because then people, it started duping other people that. What's Ronel Blanco coming out?
The first account, the first fake account was like a fake Fox Sports account.
Yes.
That had a fake.
And they do this all the time
from Ronel Blanco. That was like, there's two things that we do at the Astros, and one of them's cheat or something like that. And so then this Ronel Blanco account said, "I never said that," and I was like, Ronel Blanco got duped, and clearly I also got duped.
So is it a big deal? I don't know. I guess not. Like he's gonna miss 2 starts.
It would be a big deal if it happened in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If it happened in the playoffs, it would be a controversy, and people would be doing they really would be going down. The fact that it happened in the middle of in May when the Astros aren't very good, nobody's really paying attention.
So we did talk about this we talked about this yesterday. The Orioles Blue Jays. The Orioles it became the 4th game in baseball history with a leadoff home run and then a walk-off home run.
Oh, right. You want to give Stan the years and the players and see if he can figure out who the teams were?
Yeah. Or do we want to give him the players, or we're trying to get
the year. Okay, so it's the 4th time in baseball history,
right,
that a team
comes from Sarah Lanks
hit a leadoff home run,
right,
and a walk-off home run, and scored no runs in between.
Okay. Yes.
It's the 4th time in baseball history.
Have zero.
Well, and of course you wouldn't. Nobody would know that. But Griffin's going to give you the year and the players
team
involved.
And the player?
No, just the players. And you got to tell me who the team was.
Okay.
In 1983,
right,
Joe Morgan hit a leadoff home run, and then
Philadelphia
Phillies.
Phillies.
This one's pretty obvious.
Phillies.
And then Ozzie Virgil pinch hit walk-off grand slam.
Yep.
In 1971, Bert Campaneris leadoff home run. And they both hit this.
Oakland A's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oakland A's. Reggie Jackson inside the park.
Inside the park.
Both off Sonny Siebert.
Yeah.
Sonny Siebert.
Yeah.
And then in 1966, Felipe Alou, a leadoff home run. Eddie Matthews.
Atlanta Braves.
Correct.
Yeah.
Both off of
this Dodgers pitcher.
1966.
Mm-hmm.
Felipe Alou. Claude Osteen?
No, not Claude Osteen.
Think higher.
Don Drysdale.
Even higher.
Sandy Koufax.
Sandy Koufax.
Wow.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the Roku games were announced this week as well. Like,
that's right.
We know the Roku schedule. It's like
they're not all going to be morning games.
Didn't we miss one?
No, that was the 4th was the Orioles.
Oh,
the Orioles
okay.
were the 4th.
In Westbrook. Okay.
Yep.
They're not all going to be morning games.
Yeah, they won't all be morning games.
Some of them will be
West
afternoon
Coast,
games.
and they're just going to start at 4. So.
Well, and some of them are going to start at like 12:30. They're not going to start at 11.
Yeah, they won't start at 11:30.
It's like a random collection of start times.
It's a 3-year deal, so maybe I'm sure they'll have it a little bit better fine-tuned, I guess, next year.
I don't know. It's weird that they're announcing a TV deal after the season began. That's a weird thing.
They were also talking about because Evan Drellick wrote about this this morning and about the baseball nationalizing TV rights. And that potentially being a possibility, and like why they may want that, and why some clubs are pushing to end local TV deals.
Well, they want that because they want to get a bigger piece of the pie. The small market teams absolutely would be benefited from a nationalization of TV, and also probably the teams that have been dealing with the Bally stuff are interested in this. But undoubtedly, for the fans of baseball, you want your guys calling the baseball games. Yeah. You don't want to do the football bit where it's a different broadcaster every game, because every time you get one of these Apple TV Plus games, the first thing everyone says is, these guys don't know anything about the Orioles.
Right, exactly.
And it's different in football where there's one game every week, and you got all week to study for it.
And it's really not a criticism of the guys.
No, I think they're doing a fine job.
They can't be expected to
100%.
know the nuances.
You want to spend your evening with people that are paying attention to the team and that's what you want. It would. Now, if they can nationalize that somehow, baseball, and say, we're all going to share the revenue of broadcasting, but you're going to keep local broadcasts, then maybe there's a conversation to be had.
And hopefully, hopefully
making
that's
it
what would have to be.
The nightmare would be making it like football. I mean, you make it
because
like
you're
football.
still going to have 15 games every single night, and
correct.
Like you wouldn't want to have Kevin Brown calling the Padres.
It's got to be
game
local.
one night.
It's got to be local broadcast. It's an interesting conversation, and I can certainly see why some teams, obviously the teams dealing with the Bally mess, are worried about it. And the small market teams would say, hey, this has worked out for football. Football, it's leveled the playing field in football by everyone sharing the broadcast revenue, right? Like, that's been beneficial for everyone in football. I understand why small market teams would want it, but from a fan's perspective, it has to involve local broadcasts. Has to. It cannot be that, Fox Sports 1 is one game and ESPN has another game, and you've got to keep it somehow localized. So it's the only way that it works.
Okay.
That
is all I got.
All right.
John Means is pitching against the Mariners. Last time he pitched against the Mariners, you know what happens?
Oh yeah, that was in Seattle though. That time.
It was in Seattle. But it was against the Mariners.
All right, very good. That's this week in the rest of baseball. You got to go.
Yeah, I got to.
Stan's got to go. At Stan the Fan on Twitter.
At Stan the Fan on Twitter. Be back with. I got the new column up on Adlai Rutschman, the best column I never wrote. And be back Monday with Ross and Luke, and next Thursday with the guys.
Very good. Right? Very good. Thank you as always.
All right. I'm sorry I got to duck out.
I may or may not be back next Friday. I'm working through it.
Okay. Right.
I might choose to take a 4-day weekend next weekend with the holiday and trying to do some stuff with my family. I'm debating that at the moment, but I'm leaning in that direction that we might just have a day off.
And
next
I will
Friday.
not be here on June the 14th. I have a wedding in Vermont.
Oh, it's not Bernie Sanders, is it? You're not going up to feel the burn, are you? Not the case. All right, very good. It's the list of Vermont
no
things.
one blame you.
List of Vermont things that I have stored up. I've got the
skiing,
Catamounts. Maybe. Oh, we can play the game.
Vermont things.
Yeah, Vermont things. Yeah, go ahead. What you got?
Live free. No, that's New Hampshire.
What do you have?
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Fine. Ben and Jerry's.
Oh, really? That's Vermont?
Yeah. What else you got?
They'll play UMBC in basketball twice every year.
Okay, they're in the America East, sure. The capital of Vermont is...
Wait. Montpelier?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that is correct.
I get all the New England,
Love you
especially
guys.
New Hampshire.
See you, buddy. Great to see you, Stan. Always appreciate it. My buddy Mike Lonergan used to be the basketball coach at Vermont. Oh. Yeah, former Maryland assistant. Used to be the head coach at Vermont.
I may have...
You're going to crown me the king of Vermont?
I think I got to tap
It's time to crown me. Go ahead. Give me my crown.
Someone already printed out a T-shirt with Scotty Scheffler.
Of course they would. Of course. Move quickly. All right. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you
the official
today.
PGA Tour account?
No.
Tweeted this?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's Oh, okay. Yeah. They spelled tour wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
TUOR. Yeah, that's a big one now.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Today's show brought to you by, or Tidbit is brought to you by Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. Atman's Deli, it's everything you loved about the original Atman's, but now they also have a bar. All the great corned beef piled high, the deli sandwiches, the soups, the desserts, the hot dogs with the fried bologna, it's all there. AtmansDeli.com to find the daily specials at the brand new Atman's Deli in Harbor Point.
Ellie De La Cruz had a really big game yesterday. Stole 4 bases, had 4 hits. He became the 4th youngest player in baseball history to have a 4-hit and 4 stolen base game. The only 3 guys younger.
Yes. They have 4 base hits in a game
and 4 stolen bases in the same game. This wasn't gonna be the
I can't
tidbit.
believe there are this many. Like,
yeah.
That's
at 20 years old in 1907.
Oh God! If you would have said that, I would definitely known it was Wee Willie Keeler.
Close. Well, Ty Cobb.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Ty Cobb. 1981.
If I would have done old-timey baseball names, I would have gotten there eventually.
At 21 years old in 1981.
Ricky?
Not Ricky. He's...
What?
No, is he old? Yeah, I think... I'll just give it to you. Tim Raines.
Oh, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, 100%.
Tim Raines. And then 1924, I don't think I can pronounce his name, also 21, Howard Fragow?
I got nothing on that one.
Howard Fragow. He also... became the 6th player to steal at least 30 bases through his team's first 44 games of a season. 6th player to steal 30 bases in the first 44 games of the season.
6 players to steal.
Mm-hmm. Can you name the other 5?
40 bases the first 30 games.
30, 40.
30-40. 30 bases through the first 40 games.
44 games, but yes.
Ricky.
Mm-hmm. Ricky Henderson in 1988.
Raines.
Tim Raines in 1981.
Maury Wills.
No, not Maury Wills.
Lou Brock.
Yes, Lou Brock, the first to accomplish this in 1974.
How many am I supposed to be getting?
I would like 2 more, please.
Vince Coleman.
Vince Coleman, well done.
He's naming stolen base guys. That's all I'm doing here.
1987.
Kenny Lofton.
Kenny Lofton. Did you go 5 for 5?
I mean, no, I threw in Maury Wills.
Oh, you did, yeah. Kenny Lofton in 96.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a surprising list. I got to be honest with you.
Right.
Like, it's just
fine.
I know it's fine. It's just that
all right, let me see
if
if
you
I can
ask
come up with
me,
a better one
no, it's just if you ask me any stolen base question,
Aaron
those are gonna be
Judge.
I don't have any interest in.
Okay, fine.
I think I might run to Pimlico today, so I got to get out of
all
here.
right, fine.
I got to get out of here. Tidbit was also brought to you today by County Sports Zone. Again, the MIAA Lacrosse Championships coming up later on tonight. You can find out more about that as well as everything going on. It's championship season in lacrosse at the high school level. And then in the coming weeks, baseball and softball. Go to countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Now it's time for Tubular.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
And just because I began just a second ago, I was telling you about the MIAA Lacrosse Finals. I'll tell you that both of those can be seen on YouTube tonight. It's youtube.com/@LaxAllStars. The B Championship at 5 o'clock, St. Peter's and Paul against Archbishop Curley. And at 7:30, the A Conference, McDonough and Boys Latin. So those are the MIAA Lacrosse Championships tonight. All right, Masson 2, Orioles Mariners, 7 o'clock tonight, Bryce Miller and John Means. Tomorrow, it's very annoying that it's Masson 2 this weekend. I believe it's because the Nationals are playing the Yankees or the Red Sox. They're playing one of them this weekend, and that's why the games are all stupid. It's the Phillies. It's not even
a big rivalry. Well, the Phillies are the best team in baseball.
Stupid.
Ranger Suarez isn't even going to pitch this weekend. Why would they?
Yeah, right? Dumb. Tomorrow, Luis Castillo against TBA. Tomorrow's game is also on Fox Sports 1 nationally with Alex Faust and Tom Verducci on the call. And on Sunday, it's George Kirby and TBA at 1:30, and that game is also on MLB Network. That's going to just be a local broadcast that airs on MLB Network. Also today, Peacock for the Black-Eyed Susan. That starts at 4:30. Big Ten Network Plus, Penn State, Maryland baseball at 6 o'clock, final series of the regular season. PGA Championship coverage is on ESPN Plus right now, shifts to ESPN at 1. Game 6 between the Knicks and Pacers tonight at 8:30 on ESPN. Hockey tonight, Panthers-Bruins Game 6 at 7, and Stars-Avalanche Game 6 at 10, both those games on TNT. Tomorrow, Preakness coverage begins at 1:30 on CNBC and then shifts to NBC at 4:30. Post time is set for about 6:50. NCAA Lacrosse Tournament quarterfinals tomorrow. Notre Dame, Georgetown at noon. Maryland, Duke at 2:30 on ESPNU. And then the finale for Penn State and Maryland baseball at 2 o'clock on Big Ten Network Plus. Caitlin Clark on TV again tomorrow, 1 o'clock on ABC against the Fever against the New York Liberty. Then tomorrow night, Game 6 between the Thunder and Mavs at 8 o'clock on ABC. PGA Championship coverage tomorrow at 1 on CBS. It begins on ESPN at 10 a.m. and on ESPN Plus at 8 a.m. And then on Sunday, the other two quarterfinals, of course, from United Stadium. Noon, Denver-Syracuse, 2:30 for Hopkins, Virginia. Those are on ESPNU again. Same schedule for the PGA Championship. 1 o'clock on CBS, 10 a.m. on ESPN, ESPN Plus at 8 a.m. Everything else this weekend, you can go to glennclarkradio.com and find it there. Anything non-sports-wise?
Yeah, a few things. On Apple TV Plus, The Big Cigar. This is a new TV show. It's about, I think it's based on a true story. This Black Panther leader, he teams up with a Hollywood producer to elude a nationwide manhunt so that the producer guy could escape to Cuba because he was being pursued by the FBI. It's about that's what it is. Huey P. Newton and his escape to Cuba.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently it's a real thing. Andre Holland is in it. He was in Moonlight. That's the only actor I could recognize. So like the big scarf.
Is this
the name
thing,
of
by the way, is this real that like Jeremy Clarkson was named the sexiest person in Britain?
Who's Jeremy Clarkson?
He's the guy from Top Gear. He's like in his 60s. I saw that going around social media all week.
Were you jealous?
No, I just didn't know if it was real or like it was a bit that people, because they were always like beating out Tom Holland and Idris Elba, and I've seen it on Twitter all week, and then like Tom Holland retweeted and said maybe next year, and I just didn't know if it, because I didn't bother to. This is the Romel Blanco thing. I just didn't care enough.
2 years in a row.
Yeah, I didn't bother to like dig in and see if it was actually like a real thing or like just a bit that people were doing on social media.
I mean, I don't know. That's weird.
I don't know.
Good thing we don't live in Britain.
I don't know, man.
99. This is a sports docuseries on Prime Video. It's following Man United's chase for the treble in the 98-99 season.
Sure.
So like David Beckham, other players. It looks pretty good actually if you care.
I sure don't. But
if you care about soccer, you're probably into it. But it looks.
I'm sure it's fine.
Looks well done. The season 49 finale of SNL. Jake Gyllenhaal is hosting.
Wait, this is the finale?
It's May 18th.
The hell?
What do you mean? What the hell?
The finale?
Yeah. The
Oh.
season finale, like when
sucks.
Okay.
That
I mean, it's
sucks.
May. It's the third week of May. Like,
But they just do so few shows during the course of the year.
they've done. I don't know how many they've done. I mean, they usually do like what, 15 to 20. Like
I guess I don't know, man. Whatever.
Jake Gyllenhaal, Sabrina Carpenter is the musical guest.
Okay.
You know who she is?
I know who she is. She was on the reboot of Girl Meets World when they tried to remake Boy Meets World, and wasn't she on she was in Allie and AJ, right? Was there?
Austin and Allie, that show.
Was that? I thought it was. I thought there was.
Was she on Austin and Allie? I don't know. Maybe.
I thought she was. I thought it was Allie and AJ. This is gonna show how little I know about these things. And I believe she was
Disney Channel show or like.
Yeah, I believe
it was
was
Austin and Allie. Yeah.
No, but there was like a girl. Allie and AJ is a thing, man. I'm telling you. Allie and AJ was a pop duo. That's what it was. And was she in that? Maybe she might not have been in it. Maybe I've. Nope, she was not part of that. So strike it.
So Allie and AJ is a real thing, though.
Allie and AJ is a real thing.
Okay.
But Sabrina Carpenter had nothing to do with it. It was adjacent to Sabrina
she was
Carpenter.
Sophia the First.
What was that? Was that a group?
It was like another
show.
an animated kids TV show.
Okay.
Like princess show.
Okay.
On Disney.
She was definitely on. Hang on. She was definitely on Girl Meets World. I had Austin and Allie. She was on Austin and Allie.
Okay.
So
Allie and AJ is a thing?
I've conflated Austin and Allie with Allie and AJ. Allie and AJ was a pop duo.
Okay, so they weren't a show.
No, and the girl from Allie and AJ though was also an actress. So I think that's how I've managed to conflate these things.
Got it. All right. Well, I mean, you knew that she was on Austin and Allie.
I nailed that she was on Girl Meets World. That's the thing that I knew about Sabrina Carpenter, and I also know that she's a musician of sorts. That's the list of
Catch
things.
her on SNL.
The list of things I've got
Bob's
for you.
Burgers is back on Sunday night on Fox, which we're all excited
Apparently,
for.
she's 4 feet 11 inches. She's very short.
She's that short? What?
Apparently.
I didn't know she was that short.
I didn't know that either. Just found that out. I don't know why her height is on the about on Google. But if you just Google Sabrina Carpenter and go to the right, there's an about section, and it's born May 11th, 1999 in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, which I didn't know there was a Quakertown, Pennsylvania either.
Oh, of course,
height
Quakertown, Pennsylvania.
4'11". So there's that.
The penultimate episode of The Sympathizer.
Oh, good time for me to start.
On HBO. Gentleman in Moscow, also the series finale of that on Showtime, if anyone has Showtime. I don't think I know anyone that does.
Yeah, you got to pay. You got to pay extra to get it on Paramount. It's just not happening.
Yes. There's your highlights.
Okay.
Not a
everything else. GlennClarkRadio.com. Thanks today to Stan. Thanks to Rick Rizzs with the Mariners crew. Thanks to the great Bob Baffert, to Larry Collmus, and to Marc Broady and Greg Cross from the Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority. We'll get all that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Monday, we'll get to that when we get to it. I will not be on 105.7 on Sunday. Rita will be. She'll be with you from 12 to noon, but I am... it's a really neat thing. I'll probably talk more about it on Monday, but we're surprising our kids. You guys might remember the story from last summer where we went to the beach and we started playing wiffle ball, and it turned into this like Sandlot-esque never-ending wiffle ball game. And we made these friends that were from Montreal or from Quebec. And like the boys, my sons ended up like palling around with them all week, despite the fact that there was like a language barrier, and we had like dinners together, and like we ended up becoming, and so we are meeting them in New York for the day on Sunday and surprising our kids that they're going to get to see them again. So It's a really neat thing that we're doing this weekend, but a very stressful thing to try to pull off a one-day trip to New York with a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old.
So what are you going to tell them? Where are they going?
Because we can't take the megabus. You're not putting a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old on the megabus and getting on there and finding out there are no seats nearby. So we got to take the Amtrak. And by the way, guess how much it costs for 2 adults and 2 kids to Amtrak to and from New York on one day?
Too much.
Yeah, guess.
I'm trying to think because I've done those day trips to New York recently. Well, like total or just
total?
500.
Yeah, you wish.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
God.
Double it.
Jesus.
Double it.
God.
Double it.
All right. I mean, yeah, that's a good thing. That's a great thing you're doing. They will appreciate it.
Yeah, now my kids are being a-holes
one day.
Week.
Maybe not Sunday. Maybe not.
We got some problems in this department. It's caused some stress in our family, to say the least, this week. I've had some rough days. That and the rash have really. I didn't think I talked about that on the air. I got a rash going on. Not. All right, I was going to say you can't. I was about to say not something you can see, and then I think everybody was going to think the same thing. Not there. Just.
Oh, we know. Yeah, we get it.
Unpleasant. I feel like if I lifted my arm up, you'd be able to see it.
Well, I hope you feel better.
Real problem.
I hope you enjoy your weekend.
Yeah. The Bat Around tomorrow morning with Paul and Ryan at 10 a.m., and then we're back at it on Monday. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Atman's Deli, A.J. Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costa Sin, MSAA, Maryland Jockey Club, Glory Days Grill, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Go Maryland and Hopkins lacrosse. Go, I don't think, is there anybody else that we care about? Duke sucks.